Chapter 926. At this moment, the first ancestor, second ancestor and fourth ancestor found it hard to believe. In their impression, Ning Fan was just a great tonic that was affected by the barbarian summoning technique. His cultivation base should not be high. How could the weak Ning Fan be able to fly on a flying sword in the forbidden area? Is this young man really a weak cultivator? Could it be that they have really misjudged him? Is Ning Fan not a weak cultivator at all but an immortal emperor? At this moment, Ao Xian was also shocked speechless. He had seen Ning Fan's bounty poster before. Thus, he recognized Ning Fan's identity at first glance. It's this young man who snatched the ancestral bow from old ancestor Poisonous Dragon. There's no doubt about it. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon once said that the one who snatched the ancestral bow was a weak cultivator. The only thing that we need to pay attention to is the few drops of Fuli ancestral blood in his body. Putting the ancestral blood aside, this person is not worth mentioning. Is he really not worth mentioning? Recalling the information given by old ancestor Poisonous Dragon, Ao Xian found it ridiculous. The information was wrong. How is Ning Fan a weak cultivator? How can a weak cultivator fly on the 8th floor of the Heaven Fault Tower? Why don't you fly for me to see? Ao Xian also noticed that Ning Fan's body had a threatening baleful qi. It was the baleful qi that could only be obtained by killing immortal venerables of the past. Besides, if he was not mistaken, that baleful qi actually contained a trace of old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's death qi. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon actually died in Ning Fan's hands. Didn't he go to look for the origin qi? Could it be that the person who snatched the patriarch's origin qi is also this person? That unlucky Poisonous Dragon wanted to take back this person's origin qi but was killed by this person instead? Ao Xian felt that he had found the truth. He was even more convinced that Ning Fan's cultivation base was unfathomable. At this moment, all the 43,000 ancient coffins in the sky let out hissing sounds. Ancient corpses kept sitting up from the coffins. It was because Ning Fan had entered the 8th floor and caused a huge commotion that awakened all the ancient corpses on this floor. 43,000 rays of killing intent passed through layers of heavy rain and locked onto Ning Fan. That was the killing intent of 43,000 immortal venerables. Just by being affected by the killing intent, Venerable Miao Yan's qi was in a mess and he could barely stand steadily. Her injuries were too severe. 43,000 corpses were equivalent to 43,000 eternal immortal sovereigns. This level of power was too terrifying, and even immortal emperors would have to retreat. The murderous intent in the surroundings made her feel uneasy. She moved a little closer to Ning Fan, only then did she find a sense of security and calmed down. There are so many ancient corpses. Can he deal with it? Venerable Miao Yan was a little worried. He stole a glance at Ning Fan and bit his lips. Then, he obediently remained silent. Ao Xian and the rest were drenched in cold sweat when they saw the 40,000 ancient corpses awakening. Each of them activated their concealment techniques to the extreme, afraid of being discovered by these ancient corpses. Fortunately, none of the ancient corpses noticed their existence. The gazes of the 40,000 ancient corpses gathered on Ning Fan alone. This kid is out of luck. Being surrounded and attacked by 40,000 ancient corpses, it's a situation where he has no chance of survival. 40,000 ancient corpses are equivalent to 40 million ancient immortal sovereigns. Even if this kid really has the cultivation of an immortal emperor, he's definitely not a match for this group of ancient corpses. Even if he doesn't die, I'm afraid he'll lose a layer of skin. I'm afraid it won't be easy for him to survive. When Ao Xian and the others saw the ancient corpses besieging Ning Fan, they were more or less gloating over his misfortune. So what if you can fly on a flying sword on the 8th floor? So what if you have the cultivation of an immortal sovereign? Let's see how you're going to deal with the aftermath of waking up the army of ancient corpses. Zido Immortal Cultivation Realm. Defying the tribulation to survive. I have no regrets. Life and death are all for Zido Immortal Cultivation Realm. Voices came out from the mouths of the ancient corpses subconsciously, accompanied by strange roars. More and more ancient corpses surrounded Ning Fan. Under the countless murderous intents, Ning Fan felt chills running down his spine. His heart was beating wildly uncontrollably. At this moment, he was going to face 43,000 immortal venerables all by himself. There were not so many immortal venerables in the entire 4 heavens and 9 worlds. Only in the ancient times in the Zi-Do immortal domain could one see such an army of immortal venerables. Ning Fan had never been locked on by so many powerful killing intents before. It was inevitable that he would lose his composure. After all, his true cultivation base was not as strong as these ancient corpses. Under the targeting of these killing intents, Ning Fan found it hard to breathe. His body also became immobile. He forcefully bit the tip of his tongue and used the slight pain to regain control of his body. Then, he raised the separation and reunion sword and swung it forward. So what if there are 40,000 ancient corpses in front of him? If he is strong, so be it. The life-severing sword will only become stronger when it encounters strong opponents. As Ning Fan swung his sword, more and more sword lights appeared in front of him. When he faced the 600 ancient corpses just now, Ning Fan could produce 60,000 sword lights with a single slash. This time, he produced even more sword lights. 10 rays, 100 rays, 1,000 rays, 10,000 rays, 100,000 rays, 1,000,000 rays. 4,000,000 rays. 4,000,000 rays of life-severing sword light surrounded his body. At this moment, Ning Fan gave others a feeling that he was so strong that he was invincible. The aura force of the 4,000,000 rays of sword light had already exceeded the scope of the second step of Tao cultivation. Perhaps, only the legendary third step saints could display such an aura force. Wherever the sword light passed, it formed a silent chi wave. The great Tao laws collapsed one after another. They could not withstand the power of this sword at all. The entire heaven and earth of the 8th floor trembled violently under this sword attack. All the ancient corpses that were charging at Ning Fan stopped in their tracks at this moment. They stared at Ning Fan with inexplicable fear. None of them dared to approach him. After a moment of hesitation, almost 90% of the ancient corpses chose to turn around and flee with all their might. The scene instantly became chaotic. However, there were also over 4,000 ancient corpses who gradually suppressed their fear and continued to charge at Ning Fan without any fear of death. Unfortunately, their heroic actions were like moths flying into a flame. They were just throwing their lives away in vain. Their mouths were dripping with stinky saliva. Their faces were filled with greed. In order to eat Ning Fan, they would not hesitate to pay any price. They had long lost their rationality. The Purple Dipper Immortal Realm cultivators who dominated the world when they were alive turned into ignorant corpse devils after they died. Ning Fan gently closed his eyes and let the 4,000,000 rays of sword light pierce through the sky and slashed at the 4,000 ancient corpses. Some ancient corpses with lower cultivation bases were shredded into ashes by the sword chi before they could even get close to the 4,000,000 rays of sword light. They did not even have the time to scream. Some ancient corpses with higher cultivation bases were lucky enough to hold on for a few breaths under the attack of the 4,000,000 rays of sword light. In the end, they were still turned into sieves by the sword light and could not escape death. In less than 5 breaths, more than 4,000 ancient corpses had died under Ning Fan's sword. After killing all the ancient corpses that were blocking his way, Ning Fan opened his eyes. His expression was solemn as if he was sending off someone from afar. Seeing such a shocking result, venerated Miao Yen was so shocked that he could not close his mouth again. Perhaps even if the 28 ancient emperors of the 4 majestic sects join forces, it would still be impossible for them to defeat 4,000 immortal venerated immortals, right? However, Ning Fan had won the battle with just a single strike. Could it be that his strength alone had already surpassed the combined might of the 28 ancient emperors of the 4 majestic sects? The 4,000,000 rays of sword light swept away all the ancient corpses that were blocking their way and merged into the 1,000 zhang sword light beneath Ning Fan's feet. The slightly unstable sword light instantly became much more stable. Its flying speed also became faster. Black corpse ashes continuously fell from the sky and sprinkled on the ancient bluestone path. They mixed with the rainwater and looked like mud. Ao Xian and the others only felt a chill from the bottom of their feet to the top of their heads. Their bodies trembled uncontrollably. It was hard to believe that there was actually someone who could kill 4,000 immortal venerated immortals with a single strike in the current Dharma-ending era. Even a quasi-saint realm expert would definitely not be able to do this. Only the legendary saints could do this. What exactly is this young man's cultivation base? Could he really be? Ao Xian and the others felt extremely shocked. The three barbarian ancestors were still able to compose themselves. After all, they were people from ancient times. They had seen some saints before when they were still alive. Thus, they quickly recovered from the shock. Ao Xian, on the other hand, found it hard to remain calm. He was an ancient immortal venerated immortal during the Dharma-ending era. He had never seen any saints before. He did not believe that there were still saints alive in the current era. He also did not believe that Ning Fan was a saint. However, how could he explain the scene in front of him? Other than a third-step saint, who else could kill 4,000 immortal venerated immortals with a single strike? Saints. During the Dharma-ending era, the fate of all sects was exhausted and their orthodoxies no longer existed. How could there still be saints alive in this world? Haven't all the saints died out? Is this young man really a saint? Just as Ao Xian's heart was filled with shock, Ning Fan's sword light whizzed past the top of his head, producing a clanging sound. The wind and rain that were stirred up blew on Ao Xian's face, making him feel extremely cold. At this moment, Ning Fan did not even look at Ao Xian. However, Ao Xian still felt an invisible pressure that seeped into his bones along with the rainwater. His heart was extremely nervous. Currently, he was too close to Ning Fan. He was afraid that Ning Fan would attack him. He was not Ning Fan's match. He definitely was not. He probably could not even escape. If Ning Fan attacks him, he believed that he would definitely die. His death would be very straightforward, just like how a mortal would kill an ant with his foot. This man has a grudge against my true dragon clan. Will he attack me? It's fake. It must be fake. It's impossible for him to be a saint. However, if he really is. If he attacks me, I will fight him to the death. But even if I fight him to the death, I'm afraid I won't be able to escape death. Ao Xian's heart became more and more chaotic. His hands that were holding the Brahma demon Jian could not help but tremble slightly. Just as Ao Xian was about to face a formidable enemy, Ning Fan's sword light flew past his head in a flash. Ning Fan did not have the intention to fight him at all. Thus, Ao Xian was completely stunned. He felt a little muddle-headed. Ning Fan actually did not attack him. His life was saved. From the hands of a saint. The whistling sword light flew past the heads of the fourth ancestor, second ancestor, and first ancestor one after another. It also made the three of them extremely nervous. Even though the three barbarian ancestors were peerless figures in their previous lives, they were not feeling well at the moment. Each of them was afraid that Ning Fan would attack them. They had schemed against Ning Fan before. Naturally, they were also worried about Ning Fan's revenge. If Ning Fan attacks them, their chances of survival seemed to be close to zero with the terrifying strength that he had displayed. If he attacks us, we will fight him to the death. The three barbarian ancestors secretly made up their minds. However, their expressions showed that they did not have much confidence. They were like roosters that had lost a battle and were very dejected. However, what made them feel fortunate was that Ning Fan's sword light did not stop above their heads as well. It flew away directly. Only when Ning Fan had flown far away did they reveal a look of bewilderment. Just like that, they managed to keep their lives. Of course, Ao Xian and the others did not know that Ning Fan was not a saint at all. He was not even an immortal emperor realm expert. He was just an insignificant cultivator at the Duzhen realm. In fact, There was no need for them to be so afraid of Ning Fan, their faces have turned pale because of you. Venerated Miao Yan's expression was complicated. She noticed the nervous expressions of Ao Xian and the others. She could also understand their feelings. It was not that Ao Xian and the others were too timid. It was Ning Fan who was too terrifying, is that so? Ning Fan did not comment on Miao Yan's words. He did not pay attention to the expressions of Ao Xian and the others. His eyes were only fixed on the seventh ancestor. Half of the seventh ancestor's body had already merged with the stone door. At this moment, his eyes were unprecedentedly solemn. He was also shocked by Ning Fan's achievement of instantly killing 4,000 ancient corpses. However, his eyesight was better than the others. He had the eyesight of the first level of the unity of heaven and man. He could vaguely see that Ning Fan was not a saint. As for whether he was an immortal emperor or a quasi-saint, he had no idea. However, what puzzled the seventh ancestor the most was that Ning Fan's eyes were always locked on him with undisguised hostility. I don't know this person at all. Why is he so hostile towards me? The seventh ancestor could not figure it out. The seventh ancestor's true identity was the second primordial spirit of the immortal emperor who controlled fate. However, because he had been separated from his true body for countless years, he could not share his memories. If the seventh ancestor had the memories of his true body, he would probably be able to recognize that the young man with the ghost mask in front of him was the murderer who killed Si Ming. If the seventh ancestor knew that Ning Fan was now disguised as Zhao Jian, he would probably think that the reason why Ning Fan came to him was to take back the souls of those barbarians. Unfortunately, the seventh ancestor did not know where Ning Fan's hostility came from. However, Ning Fan's hostility was not concealed at all. It puzzled him and made him feel a little uneasy. This young man is probably not a saint. However, that sword of his is more important. No matter why this young man is hostile towards me, now is not the time for me to fight with him. Seeing that Ning Fan was getting closer to him and his killing intent was getting stronger, the seventh ancestor frowned. He mumbled something and spat out a few mouthfuls of blood essence at the stone door. The amount of power he borrowed from the barbarian god was not much. Thus, the speed at which he fused into the stone door was not fast in the first place. However, at this moment, he used a self-damaging secret technique. His chi instantly became much weaker and the speed at which he fused into the stone door became much faster. Before Ning Fan arrived, the seventh ancestor had already fused his entire body into the stone door and disappeared. Trying to leave. It's not that easy. The sword light flew past the 111 palaces and entered the gray sea of mist at the end of the ancient bluestone path. It was getting closer and closer to the stone door at the center of the sea of mist. Ning Fan stood on the tip of the sword. His long hair danced in the wind. His eyes flashed with green light as he looked at the gray sea of mist and the faintly visible ancient stone door. With his eyesight at the second level of the heavenly being realm, when he looked at the stone door, he felt like he could see through it. He could see that the seventh ancestor's body had completely fused into the stone door. His body was gradually separating from the other side of the door. One of his feet had already stepped into the entrance of the 9th floor. It was a fusion on the level of will. At this moment, the seventh ancestor had replaced the will of the stone door. He was the stone door. At this moment, injuring the stone door was equivalent to injuring the seventh ancestor. This stone door seemed to be the only entrance to the 9th floor. Besides, it seemed to be condensed from undying chi, a stone door condensed from undying chi. The defense of this door was extraordinary. Even the seventh ancestor could not break it by force. He could only use a forbidden technique to pass through the door. However, if it is a stone door condensed from undying chi, the attack of the Life Slayer sword might have a miraculous effect. After all, this sword specialized in cutting down undying beings. Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. He formed a few sword seals with one hand. When he was 10,000 zhang away from the stone door, he suddenly held venerated Miao Yan's slender waist and jumped down from the sword light. The 1,000 zhang sword light under their feet immediately let out an ear-piercing sword cry. It turned into a sharp sword shadow and slammed against the stone door. The rainstorm between heaven and earth seemed to resonate with this sword attack at this moment. Killing intent was instantly born. This sword attack contained the power of 4 million traces of the Life Slayer sword light. At this moment, all of them slashed at the stone door. It was just a simple slash, but in an instant, it caused heaven and earth to fall into the illusory moonlight. In this moonlight, everything became blurry and could not be seen clearly. Only that sword attack became incomparably clear. On the other side of the stone door, in the passage leading to the 9th floor, the 7th ancestor had already separated half of his body from the stone door. When he noticed Ning Fan's action of slashing the stone door, he could not help but reveal a mocking smile. Previously, he had underestimated the sturdiness of the stone door. After using a forbidden technique and merging with the will of the stone door, he finally saw how terrifying it was from the inside. Inside this stone door, there was an eyeball of the 9th barbarian god, old ancestor Enmo. The strength of the undying chi contained in that eyeball was far beyond the 7th ancestor's imagination. Previously, when he could not break the stone door, he thought that only immortal emperors could break it. However, after seeing that eyeball, the 7th ancestor firmly believed that even a true sage would not be able to break this door easily. Let alone Ning Fan, who had yet to attain the sage realm. This door could not be broken by force at all. The only way to enter the 9th floor was to use tricks to get past it. Hee. This stone door is much sturdier than what you imagine. Even a true sage can't. Before the 7th ancestor could finish his words, a deafening explosion suddenly resounded behind him. Before he could see what was happening, he felt a sharp pain coming from the part of his body that was not separated from the stone door in time. Countless pieces of rubble flew out from behind him. He quickly turned his head and saw the scene of the stone door collapsing and shattering. The stone door that he believed that a sage would not be able to break was directly destroyed by Ning Fan's sword. As half of the 7th ancestor's body was still fused with the stone door, when the stone door was destroyed, the 7th ancestor was also affected and suffered severe injuries. A tremendous force came from his back, causing the 7th ancestor to feel as if he had suffered a heavy blow. His mocking expression was still hanging on his face, but his body was already sent flying by the tremendous force. He coughed out blood and looked extremely miserable. His chi instantly fell into an unprecedentedly weak state. Severe injuries. He was completely and utterly gravely injured. The 7th ancestor was truly shocked and resentful. He was shocked because the destructive power of Ning Fan's sword was actually so strong. He hated Ning Fan for destroying the stone door, but he actually caused him and the stone door to be injured because of him. Who exactly is this person? He actually managed to break this door with a single sword strike. This is bad. This person's strength is even beyond my expectations. Even though he isn't a sage, he is definitely not someone I can defeat. Let's go. The 7th ancestor forcefully swallowed the sweet blood in his throat. As soon as he landed, he immediately moved forward along the passage. His speed was as fast as a ray of light, leaving behind only 7 colored afterimages. After breaking the door with a single strike, the entrance of the 9th floor was completely revealed in front of him. Ning Fan held Miao Yan in his arms and landed on the ancient path. Naturally, he saw the 7th ancestor who was fleeing in a hurry. Ning Fan had no objection to the 7th ancestor wanting to leave. However, he had to leave the 700,000 berserker souls behind. Just as he was about to shoot the 7th ancestor with the candle bow, his expression suddenly changed. Without saying anything, he pulled venerated Miao Yan who was beside him and hurriedly retreated. Even with his 2nd-level heaven realm eyesight, he could only vaguely see a ray of gray light flashing past the pile of rubble in front of him and Miao Yan. The speed of that gray light was too fast. He actually could not see what it was exactly. What's wrong? Venerated Miao Yan's beautiful face was slightly startled. She was still shocked by Ning Fan's achievement of breaking the door with a single sword strike. Before she could react, she was already pulled by Ning Fan and retreated. With her eyesight, she could not even catch the trajectory of that gray light. Compared to Ning Fan, he could at least see a ray of gray light coming towards them. 5 Yin-Yang Swords, Life-Slaying Sword Technique. Interesting. Junior, you can actually help me. An aged voice suddenly resounded in Ning Fan's mind. When that gray light was about 1 zhang away from Ning Fan, he finally saw what it was. It was an eyeball with a dark gray pupil. The aged voice had actually come from that eyeball. A world of the 9 mountains and 8 seas, open. Little brother, come with me. Don't worry. I won't forget about your benefits. The gray eyeball suddenly shot out rays of dazzling gray light which swept across Ning Fan and Miao Yan. After the gray light swept across, Ning Fan and Miao Yan's figures were nowhere to be seen. There was also no trace of the eyeball. Where did that mysterious expert go? The 7th ancestor who was running in the passageway of the 9th floor was suddenly surprised. He turned his head and his eyes shone with green light. Even with his eyesight at the first level of the heaven realm, he actually could not find where Ning Fan had gone. Did he hide himself or did he go into the middle Kiliacosm treasure? Or did he leave? Forget it. It's more important for me to go to the 9th floor and awaken the 9th barbarian god. I hope that my condition can move the 9th barbarian god and make me the host of the barbarian god's blessing. After a flash of gray light, Ning Fan appeared in a gray void. There was no land here. Instead, there were rusty copper towers floating in the void. Venerated Miao Yan was nowhere to be found. His candle bow, separation and reunion sword, Joss flame arrow, azure burning fan, 7-star lamp and other magical treasures were nowhere to be found. That mysterious eyeball was also nowhere to be found. Ning Fan gave it a try. With his current cultivation base, he could not escape from this space nor could he go into the profound Yin world. Was it that eyeball monster who caught him and brought him here? If it wasn't for that eyeball monster blocking his way, he would definitely be able to snatch the 700,000 barbarian souls back from the 7th ancestor with the power of the Joss flame arrow. Now, not only did he lose the chance to chase after the 7th ancestor, but he also lost venerated Miao Yan. Ning Fan activated his rain technique. His spirit sense fused with the rainwater and tried to cover the entire space with his spirit sense. However, he realized that the space was too vast and he could not see the end of it. The realm level of this place had at least reached the level of a medium-grade world. In fact, it might not even be an ordinary medium-grade world. Hee. Little brother, your rain technique isn't bad. Unfortunately, your cultivation base is still too low. If your cultivation base is higher, you might be able to cover my entire sovereign void with your rain technique. The voice of the eyeball monster suddenly resounded from the depths of the boundless void. Judging from the direction of the voice, the eyeball monster was just slightly to the right of Ning Fan's current position. Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. After confirming the direction of the voice, he turned into a ray of golden light and dashed towards it. He believed that as long as he follows this direction, he would be able to find that mysterious eyeball monster. Inwardly, he thought, so I have been kept into the sovereign void of a certain sovereign immortal emperor. The sovereign void was the unique ability of a sovereign immortal emperor. It was a domain-type ability. Even with Ning Fan's experience, he had only heard of its name. This was his first time seeing it with his own eyes. Hee. It's actually the piercing golden light. Little brother, your aptitude isn't bad. You've already comprehended the piercing golden light when you're just at the crossing truth realm. Unfortunately, you're only at the first death of the golden light. If you don't have someone to guide you, I'm afraid you won't be able to cultivate the second death in your lifetime. How about it? Do you want me to help you cultivate the second death of the golden light? If you do me a favor, I'll give you some good fortune. What do you think? The voice of the eyeball monster resounded again. However, this time, the direction of the eyeball monster changed. Previously, its voice came from the front of Ning Fan, but this time, it came from the back. In just an instant, the eyeball monster had run from one end of the boundless void to the other. Its speed was much faster than Ning Fan's. Ning Fan halted his footsteps and remained silent. With his speed, it was probably impossible for him to catch up to that eyeball monster in this void. Most of his magic treasures had probably fallen into the hands of the eyeball monster. Venerated Miao Yen was probably in its hands as well. That eyeball monster did not say much to him. However, it more or less mentioned the word help. Perhaps that eyeball monster had brought him to this place because it wanted something from him. Senior, if you fancy those magic treasures, feel free to take them. However, please return my friend to me. Ning Fan said to the boundless void. Pooh! None of those magic treasures of yours are innate items. Only that inferior innate bow spirit is worth a look. I don't fancy your items. On the other hand, the beauty you brought with you is not bad. Hee hee. Even though she isn't my type, I don't mind having a taste. The eyeball monster laughed wretchedly. Ning Fan's eyes immediately turned cold. It was fine if his magic treasures were taken away, but venerated Miao Yen could not allow that wretched eyeball monster to bully him. With Ning Fan's current cultivation base, he was probably not a match for that eyeball monster. Without using his trump card, he certainly would not be able to leave this place. However, he still had his final trump card, which was enough to make that eyeball monster fearful. Burn! Ning Fan shouted. 3 drops of Fu Li ancestral blood and 4 drops of Mo Luo ancestral blood in his body immediately showed signs of burning. With his current mid-true crossing realm cultivation base and minor accomplishment realm of calamity blood, sacrificing 1 drop of ancestral blood was enough for him to fight against an ancient immortal venerable. If he sacrificed 7 drops of ancestral blood, he could even fight against a peak immortal king realm expert. Burning blood? Hee hee. This won't scare me. It's just 7 drops of ancestral blood. You won't be a match for me even if you burn them. At most, you will only have the cultivation base of a peak immortal king realm temporarily. Is that so? Then what if I use burning my blood to exchange for the cultivation base of a peak immortal king realm and forcefully break the seal of this Genesis Chi and detonate it? Ning Fan waved his sleeve and an illusory mist immediately appeared in his hand. Genesis Chi. The eyeball monster immediately panicked. Genesis Chi could improve one's cultivation base, and it could also be used as a weapon of mass destruction. Even though there were 30 million seals on this Genesis Chi, as long as Ning Fan sacrificed 7 drops of ancestral blood, it would definitely be enough to break all the seals instantly and use this Genesis Chi. Even an immortal emperor would not be able to withstand the destructive power of the explosion of the Genesis Chi. It was not a joke. Little brother, let's talk this out. Please don't be rash. Once the Genesis Chi explodes, the entire void space of the palm position will collapse. If that happens, I won't gain enough to make up for my loss. Cough cough, look at my stinky mouth. I was just joking with you just now. Now that I'm dead and only have 1 eyeball left, how would I have the ability to play with women? Sigh. To tell you the truth, I invited you here because I need your help. How would I dare to touch your woman and offend you? She is currently recuperating at my old brother's place. She is alive and well. If you don't believe me, I can let her talk to you. Little sister, quickly say something. Don't let your husband detonate the Genesis Chi. I'm not a little sister. He's also not my husband. Venerated Miao Yen said shyly. The voice came from the end of the void space. It was full of chi and his injuries seemed to be much better than before. Little brother, quickly keep your Genesis Chi and extinguish the flames of your ancestral blood. Don't accidentally go too far. If you really ignite your blood, you'll be in big trouble. If you use up the 7 drops of ancestral blood, it won't be easy to cultivate them again. The ancestral blood of Mo Luo is fine. The bloodline of that little bastard isn't strong and isn't worth mentioning. However, the ancestral blood of the Fu Li tribe is a good thing. It's really a pity to burn it. The eyeball monster laughed dryly. With a flash of gray light, it appeared in front of Ning Fan along with Miao Yen. At this moment, Miao Yen was locked in an iron cage. It was unknown what kind of magic treasure the iron cage was. The creatures that were locked inside could actually receive extremely good treatment, fellow Taoist Zhao. Are you alright? Seeing that Ning Fan was safe and sound, Miao Yen secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She felt a little embarrassed when Ning Fan saw her being locked in a cage. Seeing that the eyeball monster had actually locked Miao Yen in the iron cage, Ning Fan's eyes instantly turned cold. The eyeball monster laughed dryly again and explained embarrassedly. Fellow Taoist, please don't misunderstand me. This iron cage is an innate grade healing magic treasure. Even though it looks a little wretched, the effect is still not bad. This inconspicuous broken cage was actually an innate grade magic treasure. However, what's the point of locking someone in a cage to treat them? Little brother, look. Your woman is very well. Not a single hair of hers is missing. Hee hee. Now, we can talk about some serious matters, right? To be honest, I have some difficulties and I need little brother's help. Let my friend out first before we talk about other matters. Ning Fan said with a frown. Chapter 927. Let my friend out first before we discuss other matters. Ning Fan said with a frown. Yes, quickly let me out. I don't want to stay in the cage. Venerable Wise Word's ears were slightly red. She didn't want to be a monkey in a cage and be watched by others, especially by Ning Fan. This scene was too embarrassing. Deep inside her heart, she did not want Ning Fan to see her in such a miserable state. Even though the iron cage had a remarkable healing effect, she didn't want to stay in it for even a moment longer. She tried to break the cage, only to discover helplessly that the inconspicuous, rusty cage was really a piece of connate magical equipment. She was an immortal venerable who had undergone the first tribulation of eternity, yet she was unable to blast open the cage. Ayaya. You youngsters really are troublesome. This old man has good intentions and used a connate magic treasure to treat your injuries, but you actually don't appreciate it? Fine, fine, fine. This old man will release this little girl right away. Come back, small iron cage. The eyeball monster muttered and swept out a gray light. The iron cage immediately disappeared without a trace. It was unknown where the eyeball monster had taken it. After getting out of the iron cage, venerated Miao Yen immediately flew to Ning Fan's side and stared at the eyeball monster with fear. This eyeball monster gave her an extremely dangerous feeling, even more dangerous than ordinary immortal emperors. What should we do now? We have been caught by this eyeball monster and brought here. How are we going to leave this place? Miao Yen secretly transmitted her voice to Ning Fan. After witnessing Ning Fan's terrifying strength in killing the ancient corpses, she had already regarded him as her backbone. Only Ning Fan could defeat this eyeball monster. Let's see what he wants to talk to me about first. Ning Fan's frown deepened as he replied using telepathy. The strength of the eyeball monster in front of him was unfathomable. Ning Fan was not a true sage or an immortal emperor. Thus, he did not have the confidence to defeat it. At most, he would burn his ancestral blood and explode his origin chi to break the void of the palm position and escape with wisdom words immortal venerable. Ning Fan was confident that he could survive in the hands of this eyeball monster. However, the price to pay for that was too great. 7 drops of ancestral blood and a trace of origin chi. If possible, Ning Fan did not want to use up all of his trump cards just for an eyeball monster. I wonder if the Life Slayer has the lethality to kill this eyeball monster in one hit. This eyeball monster had a large amount of immortal chi flowing around it, but it seemed to have other powers besides immortal chi. Just now, when Ning Fan destroyed the stone door with his sword had also struck the eyeball monster inside the door. The stone door was destroyed, but the eyeball monster was unscathed. It seemed to be different from the ancient corpse and the stone door. It was not afraid of the Life Slayer. Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly solemn. It was better for him to find out the purpose of this eyeball monster's visit first before making further plans. Hee hee, a young couple sure has a good relationship. Why are you whispering to each other? Let's not talk for now and follow this old man over here. I apologize for offending you just now. This old man will first give you a small gift, then we can talk business. What do you think? The eyeball cackled in a perverted manner before flying toward a certain direction. Ning Fan's face was expressionless as he followed the eyeball. He wanted to see what this eyeball monster was up to. Venerated Miao Yen, on the other hand, felt a little embarrassed. His face turned even redder and he hurriedly caught up to Ning Fan. She and Ning Fan were not a young couple. Why did this eyeball monster keep talking nonsense and disturb her state of mind? It was unknown where the eyeball monster wanted to go. Along the way, copper pagodas kept flying past them. All of them were ancient pagodas that had existed for an unknown number of years. The shortest one was at least 3 floors high while the tallest one had 6 or 7 floors. These copper pagodas were old and dilapidated. At first glance, they looked like ordinary buildings without any special features. Ning Fan did not pay too much attention to these copper pagodas. On the other hand, Miao Yan's beautiful eyes were moving around thoughtfully. The copper pagodas here are somewhat similar to the Lost World Tower of the Northern Heaven Lost World Palace, very similar. Miao Yan suddenly transmitted her voice to Ning Fan. Lost World Tower. Ning Fan was slightly stunned. Of course, he knew about the Lost World Tower. He could not help but recall a trace of memory. The Lost World Tower in the endless sea of the Rain World was indeed somewhat similar to the copper pagodas in front of him. However, it was only the layout of the pagodas that were similar. The copper pagodas here did not have the power to change the flow of time. Even though it was similar to the Lost World Tower, it was not the Lost World Tower after all. He recalled the time when he went to the Endless Sea to cultivate when he was young. He went to the Penglai Immortal Island in the external Endless Sea and entered the Lost World Tower. He formed his core and formed his nascent soul in the tower. After leaving the tower, he got entangled with Bei Xiaoman. This copper pagoda actually has the emblem of the Northern Heaven Dao Wang clan. Miao Yan suddenly discovered something and flew towards one of the nearby copper pagodas. Ning Fan's eyes moved slightly. The Dao Wang clan. Isn't that the clan of the ancestral emperor of the Northern Heaven? The Dao Wang technique passed down by the ancestral emperor of the Northern Heaven could restrain all puppets in the world. In the past, Ning Fan had used the Dao Wang technique to subdue puppets that were beyond his cultivation realm many times. Legend has it that the ancestral emperor of the Northern Heaven created the Dao Wang clan and his puppet technique was unparalleled in the world. According to the legends, the puppet technique of the Dao Wang clan was too dangerous. After the death of the ancestral emperor of the Northern Heaven, the Dao Wang clan was massacred by a few powerful beings of the Northern Heaven. None of the clan members survived. Ning Fan followed the direction where Miao Yan was pointing and saw a slightly different copper pagodas. The copper pagoda had 8 floors, and a huge totem was carved on the pagoda's door. It was an ancient totem with the shape of a black crescent moon. Ning Fan did not recognize this totem but Miao Yan had seen it before. This black moon totem was the emblem of the Mournful Death clan. She was a celestial sovereign of the Four Fiends sect, so she knew most of the clan emblems of the major clans in the Four Heavens immortal world. The Dao Wang race had been destroyed for a long time, but it had been founded by the North Heaven ancestral emperor and had a glorious history. She naturally recognized the Dao Wang race's black moon emblem. The art of mourning death is unsolvable in this world. If you encounter the dark moon, you will perish if you go against it. That's right, this totem is the emblem of the Mourning Death clan. Venerable wisdom words flew to the front of the bronze pagoda, hovered in the air, and said with certainty. I just didn't expect that this place would have the emblem of the Dao Wang clan. Is this place related to the Dao Wang clan? Miao Yan muttered to herself. Little girl, you have good eyesight. You actually recognize the emblem of the Dao Wang race. Do you want to know why this emblem would appear here? When the eyeball monster saw Miao Yan running to the pagoda, it chuckled and stopped its movement. Could it be that someone from the Dao Wang race had come to this place before? Miao Yan guessed. More than that. All the bronze pagodas here were personally built by that member of the Dao Wang race. Hee hee. Do you want to know which member of the Dao Wang race built these bronze pagodas? That's an incredible big shot. The eyeball monster started the conversation. It was really looking forward to seeing the two of them putting on a curious expression and asking him questions. Venerable Wisdom Words, on the other hand, was a little curious. She followed the words of the eyeball monster and asked, who built these bronze pagodas? Ning Fan, on the other hand, remained silent. His eyes were calm without any curiosity, which greatly disappointed the eyeball monster. Young man, aren't you curious about which member of the Dao Wang race built these bronze pagodas here? This matter involves many ancient secrets. Aren't you interested? The eyeball monster was a little disappointed with Ning Fan for failing to meet its expectations. People without curiosity were simply too boring. He did not like dealing with boring people. I'm not interested. Whoever built the pagodas here has nothing to do with me. How can it have nothing to do with you? The thing that I need your help with is related to this matter. I haven't agreed to help you yet, you will agree. You have already fallen into that old man's trap but you still don't know it. Without my help, I'm afraid you will be in big trouble. The reason why I seek your help is also because I want to help you. We are just taking what we need from each other. The eyeball monster said meaningfully. What do you mean by saying that I have fallen into a trap? Ning Fan's eyes finally showed some curiosity. When the eyeball monster met, Ning Fan finally showed a curious expression. He smiled wretchedly and changed the topic, talking about the bronze pagodas here. Young man, have you heard of the name of the Dao Wang Great Emperor? The eyeball monster showed a look that said, you are ignorant if you don't know. Of course I have. Ning Fan nodded. The Dao Wang Great Emperor was the emperor title of the ancestral emperor of the Northern Heaven. He was the peerless figure who founded the Dao Wang race and created the Dao Wang technique. It was considered common knowledge among the cultivators of the four heavens. Ning Fan had stayed in the Eastern Heaven for many years. Of course, he knew about it. Before this person dominated the Northern Heaven immortal world, he used the Dao Wang as his emperor title. After he dominated the Northern Heaven, he was respectfully called the ancestral emperor of the Northern Heaven. What was an ancestral emperor? Only a figure who completely dominated a heaven and ruled thousands of sects and clans could be respectfully called an ancestral emperor. At the same time, the Eastern demon ancestor completely dominated the Eastern Heaven and was respectfully called the ancestral emperor of the Eastern Heaven. The Western Heaven and the Southern Heaven also had their own ancestral emperors. Young man, if I tell you that the person who built the bronze pagodas here is the lord of the Dao Wang clan, the Dao Wang Great Emperor, will you believe me? This emblem of the Black Moon clan was left here by him personally. The eyeball monster showed a look that said, I don't believe you won't be surprised. The ancestral emperor of the Northern Heaven actually came here and built the pagodas here. Venerated Wise Words was surprised. This secret was not even recorded in the ancient scrolls of the Four Fish sect. Ning Fan was also surprised, but he didn't show it on his face. His eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. Is your face paralyzed? Will it kill you to scream in surprise? The eyeball monster was enraged. He refused to believe this. He wanted to reveal more secrets. He wanted to see Ning Fan's shocked expression. Have you heard of the Lost World Palace? The eyeball monster asked Ning Fan again. Yes, I have. Do you know who the ancestor of the Lost World Palace is? The eyeball monster showed a look that said, you're lying if you say you don't know. I do. The ancestor of the Lost World Palace is the late great Emperor Yin Rong. Ning Fan thought for a while and answered. Great Emperor Yin Rong, the ancestor of the Lost World Palace, was a legendary female cultivator. When she was alive, she used 10 Yin fusion pearls to dominate the Northern Heaven. She even participated in the war to eliminate the Dao Wang clan. In that battle, Great Emperor Yin Rong slaughtered 7 immortal emperors of the Dao Wang clan alone. Her name immediately spread far and wide. After the death of great Emperor Yin Rong, her magic treasure, the Yin Fusion Pearl, became known as the heaven-suppressing treasure of the Northern Heaven Immortal World due to its great power. It was as famous as the heaven-suppressing bell of the Eastern Heaven Immortal World. Do you know that the ancestor of the Lost World Palace, Great Emperor Yin Rong, is the daughter of the Dao Wang clan? Her abilities were passed down to her by the Dao Wang clan. The Yin Fusion Pearls that made her famous were personally refined by the Dao Wang clan. The Lost World Palace that she founded was even named by the Dao Wang clan herself. As for the reason why she annihilated the Dao Wang clan, it was under the order of the Dao Wang clan. The eyeball monster began to reveal some shocking information. It was really looking forward to hearing Ning Fan's surprised scream. However, it was destined to be disappointed. Ning Fan looked at the eyeball monster with a strange expression. His expression seemed to say, "You know too much. I don't really believe what you said is true." Venerated Miao Yen, on the other hand, wore an expression that said, "You're not talking nonsense, are you?" This time, even she was not surprised because she did not believe it. Great Emperor Yin Rong is the daughter of the ancestral Emperor of the Northern Heaven? Impossible. This matter was not recorded in the ancient scrolls of the Four Majestic Sect at all. It can't be true. You don't believe what I said? Everything I said is true. The eyeball monster was enraged. I have drunk wine with the Dao Wang clan before. We are friends who have gone through life and death together. The more it spoke, the more ridiculous it became. I have seen the little Yin Fusion girl wearing open crotch pants. Don't even mention how tender her buttocks are. The more it spoke, the more shameless it became. Humph. Forget it if you don't believe me. Stinky brat, stinky girl, come with me. The eyeball was so angry that it turned into a rainbow and tore through the sky. Ning Fan and Miao Yen exchanged glances. Both of them saw the speechlessness in each other's eyes. This eyeball monster is a little funny. However, they still could not let their guard down when dealing with this eyeball monster. The two of them followed behind the eyeball monster at full speed. Along the way, they encountered a few other 8-storied bronze pagodas. These bronze pagodas also had the emblem of the Dao Wang clan, the Black Moon clan. However, no one knew if these clan emblems were really left behind by the ancestral emperor of the Northern Heaven like what the eyeball monster said. Very soon, the eyeball monster brought Ning Fan and Miao Yen to the end of the void space. There were hundreds of towering bronze pagodas there, forming a forest of pagodas. The tallest bronze pagodas floating in other places only had 8 floors. However, the pagodas here had 9 floors, 10 floors and even 11 and 12 floors. The bronze pagodas here were all glowing with precious light. There was also an aura of vicissitudes of time that blew against their faces. Each of the bronze pagodas here was carved with the emblem of the Dao Wang clan, the Black Moon clan. Green light flashed across Ning Fan's eyes. He could actually see the secret Dao law of time on these bronze pagodas. There are a total of 627 sealed pagodas. 407 of them have 9 floors, 133 of them have 10 floors, 78 of them have 11 floors and 9 of them have 12 floors. Let me give you a gift. I will let you enter a 9-storied sealed pagoda. The eyeball monster said in an annoyed tone. Then, it brought Ning Fan and Miao Yen to a 9-storied bronze pagoda at the periphery of the pagoda forest. There were 627 bronze pagodas in the entire pagoda forest and 606 of them were sealed. Those seals were extremely strong. Even with the eyeball monster's abilities, it would be very difficult to break them. In the long river of time, it had only broken 21 of the seals of the bronze pagodas in this place. The reason why it brought Ning Fan to this pagoda was to break the seals. The door of this bronze pagoda was not sealed. The pagoda door was half open. The interior of the pagoda was dark and it was impossible to see what was inside. Upon closer inspection, there was actually a line of divine seal characters carved on the left side of the pagoda door. The words were well written but they contained some kind of divine ability. It gave people a feeling that the words were blurry, making them unable to see what the words were. Miao Yan glanced at it. She could not see what was written at all. She only felt that the words contained an aura force that looked down on the entire world. A moment later, she felt a slight pain in her eyes. She could not bear the pressure of the words anymore and could not look at them anymore. She could not help but shift her gaze away from the words. She was extremely surprised. The person who carved these words has a cultivation base that is much higher than mine. Even if he isn't a true saint, he must be a quasi-saint who has half a foot in the third step. These words were carved by the Dao Wang Great Emperor. I know that you definitely won't believe me, the eyeball monster said in an annoyed tone. At first, Ning Fan could not see the words clearly. However, as green light flashed in his eyes, he finally saw the words clearly. This pagoda has been sealed for 10 years. Come in. The eyeball monster took the lead and entered the bronze pagoda. After pondering for a while, Ning Fan also stepped into the pagoda. Miao Yan followed closely behind him. The interior of the pagoda had its own space. There were mountains and rivers. It was a small kiliacosm. The entire heaven and earth was completely isolated by the Tao of time. As the three of them entered the space of the pagoda, the entrance of the pagoda immediately disappeared. Little friend, just stay here for 10 years. Both of your injuries are quite serious. 10 years should be enough for you to recuperate. This is a small gift from me to little friend. Hee hee. Let's meet again 10 years later. The eyeball monster let out a wretched smile. He found a mountain with decent spiritual chi and opened up a cave dwelling. From the looks of it, he was planning to go into seclusion for a long period of time. Ning Fan was stunned at first. Then, he raised his head abruptly. Green light shot out from his eyes as if it was real. He had activated the union of heaven and man to the maximum. At this moment, he seemed to have become one with the heavenly Tao of this place. At this moment, he finally realized how extraordinary this bronze pagoda was. From the moment Ning Fan stepped into the pagoda, the time in the outside world had completely stopped. Time was still flowing in the pagoda. The sun and the moon alternated and the seasons changed. But the time outside the pagoda had stopped. No matter how long Ning Fan stayed in the pagoda, the time in the outside world would still be the same as when Ning Fan stepped into the pagoda. All of a sudden, he understood what the words engraved on the door of the pagoda referred to. The inside of this bronze pagoda had been sealed for 10 years. Those who entered the pagoda could stay in the pagoda for 10 years. The time outside the pagoda would not pass. This pagoda was even more heaven-defying than the Lost World Pagoda. The Lost World Pagoda of the Lost World Palace could only change the flow of time. This pagoda, on the other hand, could directly make time stand still. The time here is actually stopped. Miao Yan discovered some clues and was so surprised that she couldn't close her mouth. The eyeball monster who had already opened up his cave dwelling heard Miao Yan's exclamation from afar and couldn't help but feel proud. But when he saw Ning Fan's expressionless face, he became angry again. Can't this brat be surprised for a moment? Don't you know that you will be struck by lightning if you act tough? Fellow Taoist Xiao, what should we do now? Miao Yan asked. Ning Fan was her backbone. The time here is still. Perhaps we can stay here for 10 years. Your injuries are not light. Just stay here and heal them. 10 years should be enough for you to fully recover. I have some things to ask that eyeball monster. Ning Fan's figure flashed and turned into a golden rainbow, disappearing on the spot and reappearing in the cave dwelling of the eyeball monster. Seeing Ning Fan's arrival, the eyeball monster chuckled. Hee hee. What do you think of this old man's gift for you? Your injuries are not light. Don't you want to use these 10 years to recuperate? I'm not in a hurry to recuperate. I want to know, what do you need my help with? You can tell me first, but I might not agree to help you. Ning Fan said with a frown. He had to figure out the purpose of this eyeball monster. I want you to help me kill someone. I won't lie to you. It's extremely dangerous to kill this person. Even if you and I join hands, the chance of success will not be more than 30%. You can choose not to help me, but you have already fallen into this person's trap and you don't even know it. If you didn't meet me, you will die 24 hours later. Do you believe it or not? The eyeball monster suddenly became incomparably serious. At this moment, the eyeball monster no longer looked as frivolous as before. Vaguely, it had an imposing manner that looked down on the entire world. I hope to join hands with you to kill the 9th barbarian god Enmo. Your body has the chi left behind by Enmo's blessing technique. Think about it carefully. After you entered the 9 Heavens Imperial Court, did you accept the reward that Enmo gave you? If you did, then unfortunately, I have to tell you that you have fallen into Enmo's trap. You are already not far from death. If you don't believe me, then carefully check your primordial spirit to see if there's anything unusual. Chapter 928. The strange eyeball's words were so convincing that it didn't seem like it was speaking without reason. Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly solemn. After he entered the 9 Heavens Imperial Court, he really received a reward from the elderly man with the ancient statue. The old man with the ancient statue on the 9th floor had given Ning Fan a large amount of barbarian blood, allowing him to absorb the barbarian blood and improve his grade by a lot. The elderly man with the ancient statue even invited Ning Fan to the 9th floor several times, saying that he wanted to bestow Ning Fan with the blessing of the barbarian god. Could it be that the old man with the ancient statue was the ancestor of Enmo that the strange eyeball had mentioned? Could it be that he had been tricked by the ancient statue old man without knowing it? He inspected his primordial spirit and found that it was sitting steadily in his dantian. Its chi was calm and there seemed to be nothing unusual about it. You won't be able to see the abnormality of your primordial spirit with just your eyes. The blessing technique of shadowy old man Mo isn't that simple. Kid, you know the Life Slayer sword technique, so you should be the successor of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos, right? In your body, there are 4 kinds of power: God, monster, demon, and tribulation. Hee, you actually have one more tribulation sense than Ancient Chaos. You've really surpassed your predecessors. The eyesight of the strange eyeball was extremely terrifying. It was as if it could see through all of Ning Fan's secrets. Try to see if you can make your primordial spirit leave your body. After you try, you'll know that there's something wrong with your primordial spirit, the eyeball monster said again. After hearing her words, Ning Fan nodded his head and closed his eyes. Ning Fan, who was sitting cross-legged in his dantian, opened his eyes at this moment. Ning Fan's primordial spirit tried to fly out of his physical body. To any cultivator above the divine transformation realm, it was an extremely simple task. However, what happened next shocked him greatly. His soul core was just about to fly out of his body when it was immediately obstructed by a shapeless force, and it was actually unable to fly out of his body. Hee, have you finally realized? Your primordial spirit can no longer leave your body. You've fallen into old man Shady Mo's trap. The barbarian blood he bestowed upon you isn't that easy to take. If you take it, you'll have to pay the price. The eyeball monster gloated. Try again. See if you can let your essence soul enter a cultivation state, said the eyeball again. Upon hearing his words, Ning Fan's primordial spirit calmed himself down and sat cross-legged inside his physical body. Then, he began to circulate his magic power. 1 revolution, 2 revolutions, 3 revolutions. With each additional revolution, he would be able to increase his magical power through cultivation. Although the increase in magic power was negligible, it was still considered an increase. However, when he reached the 46th circulation, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his primordial spirit. His face turned pale and he coughed out blood. The dermic powers that he had cultivated in the previous 45 circulations had all dissipated in the 46th circulation. Continue, the eyeball said. Ning Fan took a deep breath and began to circulate his primordial spirit for the 47th circulation. After that, everything was normal. However, when he reached the 96th circulation, he coughed out blood once again. The magic power that he had obtained from cultivating previously had completely vanished. 46. 96. When you cultivate to the 156th circulation, your magic power will still dissipate. After that, it was 226 sextillion 306 quintillion 396 quadrillion 496 trillion 606 billion 726,856,996. The barbarians used 1000 as a cycle, and 1000 was a reincarnation. From 46 to 996, there were a total of 11 numbers, dividing a complete cycle into 12 parts. One reincarnation must go through 12 catastrophes. This is the barbarian race's deduction of the heavenly Tao. You have been hit by Old Man Ima's blessing technique. The so-called blessing is actually a type of curse technique. You should have heard of curse techniques before, right? The most powerful part of this type of technique is that it can kill people without leaving a trace, making it impossible to guard against. Among the mortals, there is a type of witchcraft technique. By writing down the person's birth and 8 characters on a doll and pricking it with a talisman needle, the person can be killed from 1,000 li away. This witchcraft technique is a type of curse technique. There is nothing wrong with the doll itself. However, after writing the birth and 8 characters on it, it can be connected with the person who is cursed through karma. Similarly, there is nothing wrong with the barbarian blood that Old Man Ima gave you. However, if you accept the barbarian blood, you will be connected with him through karma. The barbarian blood is the medium. If he wants to curse you, you won't be able to escape. Old Man Ima's blessing technique will trap your primordial spirit in your physical body and cause problems in the circulation of your magic power. Out of every 1000 circulations, there will be 11 circulations that will damage your body. From then on, you won't be able to improve your magic power through bitter cultivation unless you can break the blessing technique. The more the eyeball spoke, the colder Ning Fan's eyes became. He had actually fallen into someone's trap. If it wasn't for the eyeball's reminder, he probably wouldn't have noticed the abnormality of his primordial spirit being unable to leave his body so early. Is this the Old Man Ima that you mentioned? Ning Fan's consciousness returned to his physical body. He opened his eyes and pointed a finger in front of him. As he did so, a projection immediately appeared in front of him. It was the scene that he saw on the 9th floor just now. There was a gray moon, countless strange and deathly silent stone statues and an old man who was sitting on a throne. That's right. This person is Nemo. How about it? Now, do you believe that you have fallen into his trap? Do you want to tear him apart and take revenge? Hee hee. Let's join forces with this old man and eliminate him together. What do you think? The eyeball smiled gloatingly. Senior should be able to see through my true cultivation level, right? Ning Fan did not answer but asked a question instead. Hee hee. Of course I can. The ancient god realm was at the middle stage of crossing truth, the ancient demon realm was at the early stage of human profound, and the ancient devil realm was at the first nirvana of heavenly devil. Calamity blood realm, 1-star true blood. Although I have 4 types of energy, I haven't fused them into one. It's a pity. If I could fuse them. The eyeball monster's eyeballs rolled around. No one knew what it was thinking. What's Senior's cultivation base? Ning Fan asked again. Me? I'm just a broken eyeball, what kind of cultivation do I have? But if you really want to put it in perspective, my cultivation is roughly equivalent to the 7th tribulation of an immortal emperor. The kind of ruler, the eyeball answered. What's the cultivation of ancestor Nemo? The eyeball suddenly fell silent. After a moment of hesitation, it sighed. I've been separated from him for many years, and I don't know what his cultivation level is. He can't break through the sage realm, that's for sure. But below the sage realm, I'm afraid he's invincible. At least in your dreamland, no one is his match. If 10 quasi-sages from the illusionary world were to join forces, they might be able to fight Inma to a draw. 10 demi-saints had to join forces to fight the old man to a standstill. Ning Fan's expression changed. That old man with the ancient statue was much stronger than he had imagined. Since Senior knows that my cultivation level is low, why did you still ask me to help you kill him? With my insignificant cultivation base, I'm afraid I won't be able to help Senior much. Ning Fan's expression was cold. He did not like to be schemed against by others. With his vengeful personality, he would certainly retaliate if he was schemed against. However, the person who schemed against him was too strong. Old ancestor Yin Mo's strength alone was comparable to 10 quasi-sages. He did not have the ability to fight back. Sigh. Your cultivation base is indeed a little low. In his eyes, you're probably just an ant. Not to mention you, even this old man is only an ant in the eyes of old man Yin Mo. If we fight him head-on, even if we join forces, we will just die in vain. We have no chance of killing old ancestor Yin Mo. However, I don't intend to fight him head-on. I have a plan that can trick him. Whether this plan succeeds or not depends on your life-slaying sword technique. This is the main reason why I asked you for help. With your current state where you are under the effect of the blessing technique, if you join forces with me, you will have a 30% chance of killing Yin Mo. If I help you break the blessing technique, the success rate will increase to 40%. If I can help you, I can use this sealed time pagoda to combine the 4 types of power within your body. Your strength will definitely increase by leaps and bounds, and your chances of success will increase to 50%. 50% chance of killing Yin Mo. How about it? Do you want to join forces with me and kill him? Hee hee. Don't be in a hurry to reject me. I can tell you clearly that if you don't help me, only death awaits you. Take this jade slip and have a look. I'm giving it to you. Take your time to read it and consider my suggestion. There's no hurry. This copper tower has been sealed for 10 years. I can wait for you here for 10 years. I'll give you 10 years to think about it. The strange eyeball scanned the area with gray light. Immediately, a gray jade slip appeared in front of Ning Fan out of nowhere and flew towards him. Then, the strange eyeball took out a large pile of magic treasures and handed them to him like a magic trick. There was the candle bow, the incense fire arrow, the separation reunion sword and some other magic treasures. All of them were things that were taken away from Ning Fan. Here, here, here. I'll return all of your broken copper and iron to you. Alright, alright. You can go back and think about it slowly. I still need to go into seclusion. I won't keep you for tea. The strange eyeball activated its ability. Ning Fan and his large pile of magic treasures were instantly sent out of the cave by a ray of gentle gray light. The separation reunion sword and a large pile of 12th Nirvana realm magic treasures were actually called as broken copper and iron by the strange eyeball. Ning Fan smiled bitterly. This strange eyeball's standards are really too high. Just as he was about to read the jade slip that the strange eyeball gave him, he was interrupted by a noisy voice. Master! Little Bao finally sees you again. Weep weep weep. Little Bao doesn't want to leave Master ever again. Candle Bao felt wronged. It wanted to throw itself into Ning Fan's arms and cry. However, it was kicked away by Ning Fan. Master, you are cold and heartless. How dare you kick me? Candle Bao felt even more wronged. That's too disgusting. Don't throw yourself at me. The corner of Ning Fan's mouth twitched. Candle Bao was a wretched old man. He did not want to be thrown into the old man's arms. Master, I will definitely be loyal to you in the future. Please don't let that strange eyeball capture me again. It's really too scary. Candle Bao said with lingering fear. After he was captured by the strange eyeball, he was locked in a huge iron cauldron that was specially used to smelt magic treasures. He was almost smelted together with the broken copper and iron, like the separation reunion sword by the strange eyeball. If a magic treasure is smelted, it could still be reforged. However, he was a Bao spirit which belonged to a type of weapon spirit. If he was smelted, he would turn into ashes and nothing would be left. He was almost killed by the strange eyeball, alright? After all, he was a secondary innate realm Bao spirit. He had also followed the ancestral dragon Julie to conquer the world. Now that he had fallen into the hands of the strange eyeball, he was almost smelted like a piece of trash. It's still better to stay by Ning Fan's side. As long as I'm obedient and don't talk nonsense, my life won't be in danger. Candlebow decided that he must be loyal to Ning Fan in the future. If he betrayed Ning Fan and got picked up by someone else to be smelted, it would be a great loss for him. How dare a mere strange eyeball try to smelt me? If I have the chance, I must trick that strange eyeball to avenge my humiliation. Candlebow thought viciously. Ning Fan was too lazy to care about Candlebow. He kept all the magic treasures on the ground and looked at the jade slip again. The jade slip recorded the introduction of the barbarian god's blessing technique. After reading it, Ning Fan's face turned pale. This barbarian god's blessing technique is really too insidious. The person who gets hit by the technique would have their primordial spirit trapped in their physical body. The circulation of their magic power would also be affected. On the 46th day, 1/11 of the person's primordial spirit would melt and turn into nutrients to nourish the physical body. On the 96th day, 1/11 of the person's primordial spirit would melt again. On the 156th day, the 226th day, the 306th day. The primordial spirit would still melt again and again until the 996th day, when the primordial spirit would be completely dissolved. The complete dissolution of the primordial spirit meant that the person who got hit by the technique would die. However, the physical body of the person who got hit by the technique would be perfectly preserved. Moreover, the physical body of the person who got hit by the technique would become even stronger after absorbing the power of the primordial spirit. Moreover, the physical body of the person who got hit by the technique would be preserved perfectly. In the future, if anyone tries to possess this physical body, they would be able to perfectly merge with this physical body and control part of the power of the person who got hit by the technique. The reason why old ancestor Mo planted the barbarian god's blessing technique on Ning Fan was obviously because he wanted to dissolve Ning Fan's primordial spirit step by step and then possess his physical body after killing him. What kind of blessing is this? The barbarian god's blessing technique was the strongest divine ability of the barbarian race. Very few people below the sage realm could break this technique. There were only two ways for Ning Fan to break this technique. The first was to possess the strength of a sage realm expert and forcefully break this technique. The second was to find someone else to help him. There were also two ways for him to find someone to help him. The first way was to find an expert who was comparable to a sage realm expert to help him disperse his cultivation base. The second way was to find an expert of the barbarian race who was at the immortal emperor realm and perform a barbaric blood sacrificial ceremony to break the barbarian god's blessing technique. Ning Fan naturally could not find a sage realm expert. Even if he could find one, he did not want to lose his cultivation base. Since he did not have the strength of a sage realm expert, he could only find an expert of the barbarian race who was at the immortal emperor realm to help him break the blessing technique. If he does not break the blessing technique, he would die completely after 996 days. In the jade slip, the eyeball shamelessly recommended himself. He was an expert of the barbarian race who was at the immortal emperor realm even though he only had one eye left. Hee. Little friend, think about it carefully. If you help me kill Mo, I will help you break the blessing technique and even give you a good fortune. If you don't agree, I won't force you either. However, it will be too late for regrets when your primordial spirit is completely dissolved. The last sentence in the jade slip was a reminder that the eyeball left for Ning Fan. Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly gloomy. He kept the jade slip and sat cross-legged on a huge river, trying to break the blessing technique with his own strength. For an entire month, Ning Fan had been trying to separate his primordial spirit from his physical body on the river. However, he failed time and time again. With his current cultivation base, he could not break the blessing technique. 30 days had passed and the 46th day would soon arrive. When the 46th day arrives, 1/11 of his primordial spirit would be dissolved. He could already feel that his primordial spirit was showing signs of collapsing. Either he agreed to the eyeball's request and kill old ancestor Mo together, or he would wait for death, Or, he could choose to leave this place by force, leave the Nine Heavens imperial court, leave the desolate land and return to Eastern Heaven to ask for help from Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. Great Emperor Ancient Chaos did not have much power left. However, if he helps Ning Fan to disperse his cultivation base, he would still be able to break the blessing technique. However, Ning Fan was unwilling to disperse his cultivation base at all. Why should he disperse his cultivation base? He had painstakingly cultivated for many years and risked his life to obtain this cultivation base. Not only did it contain sweat, blood, and tears, but also the memories of his path of cultivation. This cultivation base was the only thing he could rely on to protect the people behind him. Why should he disperse his cultivation base? Why should he stay here and wait for death? At first, he thought that the old man in the stone statue did not have any evil intentions when he bestowed the barbarian blood to him. He had also checked that there were no hidden dangers in the blood. Unexpectedly, he still fell into someone else's trap. What an indefensible blessing technique. What an impressive old ancestor Mo. What an impressive figure who could only be put up a fight against 10 quasi-saints. It won't be that easy for you to kill me. Since you want to kill me, why can't I kill you instead? Ning Fan suddenly rose to his feet and stepped on the surging river water. Killing intent shot out from his eyes and the entire river immediately turned into a raging wolf. Venerated Miao Yen, who had already opened up her cave dwelling and was recuperating from her injuries, was slightly surprised when she sensed Ning Fan's killing intent. She did not know why Ning Fan had such a huge killing intent. However, if he needs help, she would help him. The eyeball monster was in secluded cultivation. When he suddenly sensed Ning Fan's killing intent, he smiled in satisfaction. Not bad. You're indeed the disciple of Ancient Chaos. He no longer went into seclusion. Instead, he turned into a ray of gray light and rushed out of the cave dwelling. He flew to Ning Fan's side and gave him a wretched smile. Brat, have you made up your mind? Do you want to wait for your death slowly or agree to my request? Senior, do you think I have any other choice now? I just hope that you won't go back on your words and plot against me behind my back after working with you. Ning Fan answered with a hidden meaning. He could only choose to work with the eyeball monster. However, he still had to keep his guard up against the latter. The cultivation world had always been like this. The higher one's cultivation base was, the more they liked to plot against others. Today, old ancestor Mo could plot against Ning Fan. In the future, it was hard to guarantee that the eyeball monster would not do the same to Ning Fan. Working together? Sure. However, he would not lower his guard at all. Hee. Then you have to be careful. I have committed many evil deeds in my life. Stabbing people in the dark and stabbing people in the back is something I have done every day. The word evil is the best description of me. If you don't want to die in my hands, then you better keep your guard up. Let's go. I will bring you to a place and help you break the blessing technique. Then, I will give you some benefits. Chapter 929. As soon as it finished speaking, the strange eyeball shot out a ray of gray light, disappearing on the spot along with Ning Fan. In the next instant, the two of them appeared in an extremely remote valley within the Copper Pagoda space. In the valley, there was lush vegetation. In the depths of the valley, there was a freshwater lake with a decent amount of spiritual energy. I'll help you break the blessing spell here. Kid, do you know how to set up a formation? The eyeball asked strangely. That depends on the grade of the formation. I can't set up formations that are too much higher than my cultivation base. Ning Fan answered. Forget it, I'll set up the formation myself. Do you have any Dao crystal? Give some to this old man to set up the formation. How much? Not much, just give me 100 trillion. The eyeball monster had an expression of, 100 trillion Dao crystals is just a drizzle. What level of formation did you set up? 100 trillion Dao crystals in one go. I don't have that many Dao crystal. Ning Fan looked at the eyeball monster with a strange expression. After seizing old ancestor poisonous dragon's storage pouch, the number of Tao crystals he had was close to 1 trillion. His wealth was richer than most of the 10,000 ancient immortal venerables, but it was only a tenth of what he needed to set up the formation. One should know that the strongest mortal void realm formation in the Rain world only required 100 billion immortal jade to set up, which was equivalent to 20,000 Tao crystals. In the upper realm, a life immortal's sect protection formation could be set up with tens of millions of Tao crystals. The sect protecting formation of the Duzhen faction would cost billions of Tao crystals. There were tens of billions of Tao crystals in the Great Sect Protecting Array, which was enough to set it up. The sect protecting formation of the Broken Thoughts faction did not exceed 1 trillion Tao crystals at most. The eyeball monster wanted 100 trillion as soon as it opened its mouth. What level of formation was it going to set up? Even a super force like the Godly Void Pavilion didn't seem to have spent so much money on their sect protection grand array. Seeing that Ning Fan was hesitant to take the money, the eyeball monster said snappily, "Brat, do you think that the blessing technique is so easy to break? That was the barbarian race's strongest possession technique. At the very least, you need to set up a saint-level array to break this technique, understand? This old man's cultivation is not enough. At most, I can only set up a corner of the saint's array pattern. Using 100 trillion Tao crystals to set up the array is already considered very little. If it was a complete saint formation, it would require hundreds of times more Tao crystals to set it up. The eyeball monster was going to set up a corner of the saint formation here." Ning Fan's eyes were slightly moved. "Brat, how many Tao crystal do you have on you? Take out all of it. If it's not enough, I'll help you make it up," the eyeball monster snapped. "Only 10 trillion. Ning Fan said with a bitter smile. "What? You only have this much? In other words, in order for this old man to help you break the blessing technique, I will help you pay 90 trillion myriad Tao crystals." The eyeball monster felt extremely pained. He really did not expect Ning Fan to be so poor. His family only had 10 trillion Tao crystals. He could not even take out 100 trillion, 10 trillion Tao crystals. Even an ordinary 10,000 ancient immortal sovereign might not have that much money. Ning Fan was really not poor. The eyeball monster's standards were too high. What a loss. If this kid didn't help this old man's 90 trillion would have gone down the drain. If I don't help this kid break the blessing spell, the success rate of the plan will only be 30% at most. I can't not help him. Sigh, the eyeball sighed and suddenly shot out a gray light towards the sky. In an instant, the Tao crystals fell like rain, crashing down on the entire valley. Combine. The eyeball monster shot out rays of gray light. Within the gray light, every trillion Tao crystals fused to form a gray Tao crystal tower. There was a total of 90 Tao crystal towers, surrounding the freshwater lake. All of Ning Fan's 10 trillion Tao crystals were given to the eyeball monster to set up the formation and turned into 10 other Tao crystal towers. This time, Ning Fan had used up all of his Tao crystals. In his storage pouch, there were only a few million Tao crystals that he had yet to use. Money could be earned or robbed again after it is used up. How could it be more important than his life? As long as he could break the blessing technique, Ning Fan would not feel distressed no matter how much money he spent. He did not feel distressed about the money, but the eyeball monster felt very distressed. He had already spent the money. If he failed to break Ning Fan's blessing technique, it would be a huge loss. "Brat, watch how I set up the formation. This is a rare opportunity to learn. There are not many people in the illusory world who have a higher cultivation base than me in the Tao of Formations. In terms of the Tao of Formations, even ancient chaos is much weaker than me," the eyeball monster said proudly. Ning Fan did not say anything. He just stared at the eyeball monster without blinking. It was indeed an extremely rare opportunity to observe and learn. Rays of gray light were shot out by the eyeball monster. Under the control of the gray light, 100 Tao crystal towers revolved around the lake, constantly changing their positions. The great momentum of heaven and earth was also constantly changing along with the movement of the Tao crystal towers. Gray formation marks kept appearing on the ground. Those formation marks seemed to have a life of their own as they kept wriggling. The number of formation marks increased. As they connected with each other, an incomparably obscure and profound formation diagram was gradually formed. The area of this formation diagram covered the entire valley. At the center of the formation diagram was the freshwater lake. This formation diagram had yet to be completed. Just the appearance of the formation diagram already gave Ning Fan an incomparably heavy pressure. The power of 1 trillion Tao crystals gradually merged into the formation diagram. A wave of gray aura force that seemed to be substantial immediately pressed down on the entire valley. Ning Fan felt a sharp pain on his knees. His kneecaps were about to be crushed by the aura force of this formation. Both of his legs could not stand steadily and he wanted to kneel down. That aura force was too heavy. It was as if the entire samsara of eternity was pressing on Ning Fan's shoulders. That aura force was too domineering. It was trying to make anyone who faced it submit to it. That aura force carried a trace of the aura force of a saint. Even though it was just an extremely faint trace, it had already surpassed the second step of Tao cultivation. This was just a corner of the saint formation. If it was the complete saint formation, its aura force alone would be enough to crush the current Ning Fan into meat paste. The aura force of a saint was enough to suppress the entire samsara of eternity. It was not something that Ning Fan could face now. However, he could not kneel down. Even if it was a corner of the saint formation, it could not make him submit. Ning Fan endured the intense pain in his kneecaps and suddenly took a step forward. His angle was strange and tricky. After taking that step, the aura force around Ning Fan lessened by a lot. His body even emitted a faint golden light. His eyes became more resolute. He took the second step, the third step, the fourth step. Wherever he stepped, golden footprints would appear on the ground. With every step he took, the aura force of the grand formation would lessen a little. After taking 9 steps, the aura force of the grand formation was completely removed from Ning Fan's body. He had used the Eastern Demon Ancestor's prestige secret word and integrated it into his 9 heaven-treading steps to remove the aura force of the saint formation. He did not submit to the grand formation. Oh. This brat also knows the Eastern Demon Ancestor's prestige secret word? Not bad. Seeing that Ning Fan was able to withstand the aura force of the grand formation with his own strength, the strange eyeball secretly praised him. Initially, he planned to help Ning Fan resist the aura force of the grand formation. Now that he saw it, there was no need for him to do so. The grand formation has been set up. However, it still lacks some baleful chi, which is not enough to suppress the curse power of the blessing technique. Sigh. It seems like I still have to bleed a little. 100 Tao crystal pagodas. I need to sacrifice at least 100 remnant souls of devil cultivators to accumulate enough baleful chi. I only have 43 remnant souls left. It might not be enough. Forget it. I'll think of another way if it's not enough. The strange eyeball shot out a ray of gray light. Immediately, an illusory soul of an old man appeared at the center of the grand formation. Gu Lizi, the priest of the Gu clan of the 27th branch of the ancient barbarian world. Return to your position now. The strange eyeball rebuked. It was the remnant soul of an ancient immortal venerate. His name was Gu Lizi. He was an expert who had fallen countless years ago. The chi of the barbarian race on Gu Lizi's body was very strong. He was actually a barbarian cultivator. Moreover, the baleful chi on his body was even stronger than the current Ning Fan. He was definitely a devil lord who had killed countless people when he was alive. As the strange eyeball gave the order, Gu Lizi's remnant soul immediately flew towards one of the Tao crystal pagodas. It fused into the pagodas and dispersed. At the next moment, the baleful chi of the entire grand formation increased by a few times. The soul of an immortal venerate barbarian cultivator. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with surprise. In order to set up the formation for him, this strange eyeball had actually sacrificed the remnant soul of an immortal venerate. The remnant soul of an ancient immortal venerate was actually sacrificed by this strange eyeball like a piece of trash, Hee. You don't have to be so shocked, kid. I have plenty of such remnant souls. These remnant souls are all my mortal enemies. Even death cannot wipe out their crimes. Today, I can use them as a sacrifice to help you break the blessing technique. The strange eyeball suppressed the pain in his heart and pretended to be calm. Although it was distressing to use the remnant soul of an expert, it was worth it to see Ning Fan's surprised expression. Hee. This expressionless kid has finally been subdued by me. The strange eyeball was very proud of himself. Once he was proud, he no longer felt that sacrificing the remnant soul was a big deal. After sacrificing Gu Lizi's remnant soul, the strange eyeball summoned the second remnant soul. Although it was also an ancient immortal venerate, the baleful chi of this remnant soul was obviously much stronger than Gu Lizi's. Lei Laikong, the elder of the Lei family of the 106th branch of the ancient barbarian world, returned quickly. As the strange eyeball gave the order, Lei Liakong's remnant soul flew towards the second Tao crystal pagoda. Another immortal venerate's remnant soul. Ning Fan's eyes flashed. This expressionless kid is surprised again. Ha! The strange eyeball became even more smug. Gu Xian, the cultivator of the Gu family of the 49th branch of the ancient barbarian world, returned quickly. Zhu Feng, the priest of the Wu Mountain Black Palace of the 74th branch of the ancient barbarian world, returned quickly. Zhu Yan, the rogue cultivator of the 81st branch of the ancient barbarian world, returned quickly. The remnant souls of immortal venerates were sacrificed to the Tao Crystal Pagoda without batting an eyelid. From the beginning to the end, the strange eyeball had sacrificed a total of 24 immortal venerates' remnant souls. The 25th soul is different from the previous 24 souls. Do you know what's different? The strange eyeball suddenly asked mysteriously. The 25th soul. Could it be the soul of an immortal king? Ning Fan guessed. That's right. In order to help you break the blessing technique, I even used the soul of an immortal king. Hee. I'm generous, aren't I? The strange eyeball enjoyed the surprised expression in Ning Fan's eyes with satisfaction. Then, it began to summon the next soul. Dong Shi, the leader of the Eastern Earth clan of the 54th branch of the ancient barbarian world, returned quickly. As the strange eyeball's voice faded away, the soul of an old man with a human body and a snake tail slowly appeared. He flew towards the 25th Tao Crystal Pagoda with a blank expression. This person was really an immortal king. After Dong Shi, more and more remnant souls of immortal kings were sacrificed by the strange eyeball. After sacrificing 16 remnant souls of immortal kings in a row, the strange eyeball's expression suddenly turned serious. He still had 3 remnant souls in his hands. He was a little reluctant to use the last 3 of them. The strange eyeball looked at the baleful chi in the grand formation and found that the amount of baleful chi was still not enough. He felt very helpless. He had no choice but to use them. Without these 3 remnant souls, he wouldn't be able to break the blessing technique. If he couldn't break the blessing technique, his chances of killing Yin Mo would be much lower. How could he do that? He must kill Yin Mo. In order to achieve this goal, he would do anything. Yin Mo must die. We can't trap the wolf without sacrificing the child. Fuck him. Use all of them. Wu clan's barbaric ancestor Usterzang, the 19th branch of the ancient barbarian world, returned quickly. As soon as his voice fell, a faint golden remnant soul appeared at the center of the grand formation and flew towards the 41st Tao Crystal Pagoda in a daze. A faint golden remnant soul. This old man named Usterzang was an immortal emperor. He was not an ordinary immortal emperor. This Usterzang was an immortal emperor who had passed the 7th tribulation of the ancient times. It's actually the soul of an immortal emperor. Ning Fan was shocked. In order to help him break the blessing technique, the strange eyeball actually sacrificed the soul of an immortal emperor. This was indeed a big deal. Moreover, Ning Fan was more concerned about where did the strange eyeball get so many remnant souls of immortal venerables, immortal kings, and even immortal emperors? Could it be that these people had been killed by the strange eyeball and their remnant souls were collected? Hee hee. You must be surprised now. What will surprise you is yet to come. The strange eyeball was so proud that it was about to fly to the sky. What could be more satisfying than conquering a person with facial paralysis? Humph. Who asked you to be so arrogant? Brat, I'm going to shock you so much that your teeth will fall off. Fan Shofei, the tribulation child of the Brahma division, the fourth tribe of the great blue mortal world, returned quickly. The 42nd remnant soul was a young man wearing black monk robes. Half of his face was painted with a black totem of a heavenly dog eating the sun. This young man had a powerful chi that was not any weaker than the 7th slaying emperor. This is, a peak 9 tribulation immortal emperor. Ning Fan gasped. This was the soul of an expert whose strength was not any weaker than the 7th slaying emperor. However, it was sacrificed by the strange eyeball like a piece of trash. According to the characteristics of the strange eyeball, the later the soul was placed, the more powerful it was. This was already the remnant soul of a peak immortal emperor. I wonder if there are any stronger souls behind it, hee hee. Scream, aren't you? Brat, hurry up and use your screams to please me. The strange eyeball looked very calm on the surface, but his heart was laughing wildly. After acting tough enough, the strange eyeball slowly summoned the 43rd soul. This was the last remnant soul he had, but it was also the strongest soul he had. The 43rd soul was an old man whose entire body was burning like flames. His body was densely covered with runes. Only his eyes were actually formed by lightning. Behind him, there was a massive shadow of a ring that emitted black light. It suddenly appeared and was as dazzling as the sun. That black shadow of the ring was actually the sacred ring of the incipient saint. This is, the soul of a saint. Ning Fan's expression changed greatly. Facing the remnant soul of a saint, he could not remain calm. Silly kid, don't be so surprised. Look at yourself. Take a good look. This isn't the soul of a saint. It's just an incarnation of a saint. I don't have that kind of extravagance to get a true remnant soul of a saint for you to sacrifice. The strange eyeball said grumpily. Inwardly, he was already feeling very pleased. He knew that Ning Fan would definitely think that this was the soul of a saint foolishly, and he would certainly be shocked by it. Ha! Everything is within my expectations. The incarnation of the heavenly venerate of the lightning division, the third tribe of the great blue mortal world, old ancestor Yu Yan, quickly return to your position. As the 43rd soul returned to its position, the baleful chi of the entire grand formation turned into hundreds of blood-red dragons, stirring up the wind and clouds above the valley. In order to help Ning Fan break the blessing technique, the strange eyeball had used 1 billion Tao crystals and 43 remnant souls of experts. However, it was still not enough. This baleful chi needs to be stronger. It seems like I have no choice but to use that thing. The strange eyeball's heart ached once again. He hesitated for a long time. Finally, he took out a drop of blood that was as black as ink and dripped it into the freshwater lake. It was unknown where that drop of blood came from. As soon as it dripped into the lake, the water immediately turned as black as ink. Moreover, an undying chi that was so powerful that it made one's hair stand on end rose to the sky. The baleful chi in the entire grand formation increased by a few times after this drop of blood was added. Whose blood is this? It was just a drop of blood, but the baleful chi it contained was a few times more than the baleful chi of the 43 experts combined. This is the essence blood of the primordial spirit of the undying great emperor. It inherited a trace of the undying power of the undying great emperor. Brat, I have done my best to help you. I hope you won't forget what you promised me. The strange eyeball reminded him with a hint of warning. All right. Quickly go to the bottom of the lake. I will conduct a barbarian ceremony for you to break the blessing technique. The process will be a little painful. You might even die. However, you must endure it. I won't let you die for real. The strange eyeball's expression turned serious. The next ceremony was extremely crucial. No mistakes were allowed. He had to treat it seriously. Ning Fan really wanted to ask about the identity of this strange eyeball and where did he get the remnant souls of so many experts. He could even get a drop of the essence blood of the primordial spirit of the undying great emperor. Don't ask too much. Quickly go to the bottom of the lake. The strange eyeball seemed to have noticed the doubt in Ning Fan's eyes. However, he acted like an elder and urged Ning Fan to go to the lake as soon as possible. Ning Fan remained silent for a moment before walking towards the surface of the lake. He could feel that the closer he got to the lake, the weaker the blessing technique on him became. This grand formation indeed had the power to break the blessing technique. The eyeball didn't seem to be lying to him. It's better to stay vigilant. Ning Fan's figure flashed and turned into a ray of golden light. He flew straight to the bottom of the lake. The lake water was as black as ink and as viscous as blood. There was a bone-piercing coldness to it. This coldness would help to weaken the blessing technique. You seem to have been struck by the barbarian summoning technique? You experienced 3 trials and became the young barbarian priest. The voice of the strange eyeball came from the surface of the lake. Yes. Ning Fan answered. It seems like old man Ian Mo has suppressed your last 6 trials. Brat, hold on. In the valley, the strange eyeball muttered incantations. Gray runes flew out continuously and went into the lake. Shadows of ancient barbarian statues began to appear in the dusky sky. Barbarian chants could be heard continuously. As time passed, the shadows of the 3 largest barbarian statues appeared between heaven and earth. The 3 statues were blurry and their appearance couldn't be seen clearly. The eyeball monster looked at the 3 statues solemnly and began a long prayer. 2 hours later, the eyeball monster suddenly looked at the statue on the far left with a complicated expression on its face. It then murmured to itself. That's right. Good corpse mourning death, appear. Following the shout, the giant statue on the far left finally showed some changes. Chapter 930. Good corpse mourning death, appear. As soon as the strange eyeball's voice faded away, the huge statue on the leftmost side had stone chips falling off continuously. Its appearance was no longer blurry and gradually became clearer. If Miao Yen was here, she would certainly be shocked again because the appearance of this huge statue was exactly the same as the ancestral emperor of the Northern Heaven in the top-secret dossier of the 4-Fish sect. It was the statue of a middle-aged man. There was a totem of a black moon on the right side of his face. It was the emblem of the Mourning Death clan. Both of his hands were entwined with countless puppet strings. His eyes were filled with benevolence. Within that benevolence, there was a sense of sorrow that could not be dispelled. That sorrow was extremely contagious. Soon, it spread across the entire valley. Ning Fan, who was at the bottom of the lake, was also affected by the sorrow, evoking the saddest memories in his heart. He thought of his mother. Her pale face. She sacrificed all of her demon blood and turned into a stone statue just to save her child's life. He thought of his father. Under the scheme of immortal Emperor Fate, his father screamed in despair and lost the memory of his true love bit by bit. He thought of the old devil. That year in 7 Apricot City, the old devil's cultivation base was destroyed by his unfilial disciple, Moksha Sovereign. It was the first time the old devil showed a sorrowful expression like an old man in his twilight years. Suddenly, Ning Fan was shocked. Unknowingly, he had already shed tears. He was assimilated by the sorrow of the ancient statue of the mourning death. This sorrow had a kind of ability that could make people feel the same way. Who is this statue? It actually has such a strong sorrow that I can't extricate myself from it. Ning Fan's spirit sense rushed out of the lake. When he saw the statue of the mourning death that was constantly emitting sorrow, his eyes were filled with emotion. Hee. This is the statue of the mourning death great emperor. Kid, you should admire the elegance of the Northern Heaven ancestral emperor. In order to break the blessing technique, I can't do without his power. The strange eyeball chuckled and answered. However, it was muttering inwardly. Morning death, oh morning death. We used to have a good relationship. You won't mind if I borrow your power today, right? Sigh. You're already dead. Why would you mind? Even your daughter is dead. Nowadays, there are only a few old acquaintances in this world. It's really lonely. He continued activating his ability while muttering some incantations. The mournful death statue's pressure grew stronger and stronger, until the entire valley was enveloped by its pressure. That pressure seemed to have turned into an invisible hand that suddenly reached out towards the direction of the lake. Ning Fan, who was at the bottom of the lake, immediately felt a sharp pain as if his body was being torn apart. It was as if at this moment, his Tao had been torn apart by an invisible hand. Blood immediately seeped out from the right side of his body, dyeing his white clothes red and dissolving into the lake water. Following that, even his flesh dissolved in the lake water bit by bit, leaving only the eerie white bones beneath his skin. After losing his flesh and blood, the right half of Ning Fan's body suddenly became shriveled. His clothes stuck to his white bones, giving him a feeling of emptiness. As half of his body dissolved, the power of blessing that imprisoned Ning Fan's primordial spirit was weakened by 1,000th. At this moment, an enormous amount of undying qi flowed into the right half of Ning Fan's body crazily. The power of immortality seemed to be incompatible with the power of his yin-yang devil vein. It was as if they were born to be two opposing powers that could not coexist. Even so, the undying power was still nourishing his severely damaged physical body. As a result, a strange scene appeared at the bottom of the lake. The right half of Ning Fan's body was only left with white bones and no flesh or blood could be seen. The left half of his body was still as good as before under the nourishment of the undying qi. Gradually, the undying power wrapped around Ning Fan's skeleton, causing the scene of flesh and blood to reconstruct on the empty white bones. In just a few breaths' time, the right half of Ning Fan's body was reconstructed at the bottom of the lake. It was no different from his previous body. Not enough. Evil corpse Enmo, appear. The strange eyeball's eyes fell on the second statue and snorted. Enmo, you are my body and I am your eyes. You and I are originally one. It's not too much for me to use your power, right? The eyeball monster muttered something, and the second colossus gradually became clearer. It was the statue of an old man with a bare upper body. His lower body was wrapped in an animal skin skirt and his hair was tied into countless braids. His appearance was obviously the same as the old man in the 9th floor of the Heavenly Imperial Court. This was the statue of old ancestor Enmo. Ning Fan's eyes moved slightly. First, it was the statue of mourning death. Now, it's the statue of Enmo. Is there any connection between the two? The ancient statue of mourning death was filled with sorrow that could not be dispelled. The ancient statue of Enmo, on the other hand, was filled with killing intent that was close to madness. A violent killing intent that was as strong as a storm suddenly gushed out from the statue of Enmo, pressing down on the entire valley. This killing intent was not much weaker than the mourning death Great Emperor's sorrow. It also enveloped Ning Fan within it. Ning Fan's eyes suddenly turned blood red. Violent killing intent began to grow. It was a kind of killing intent that would not recognize even his own kin. He would kill any living being that appeared in front of him. Kill. Kill. This killing intent is very similar to the feeling of being corroded by the tribulation sense. Now that my tribulation blood has reached minor accomplishment, this bit of killing intent won't be able to disturb my mind. The tribulation sense around Ning Fan's body flashed with red light, forcefully dispersing the killing intent. He could allow himself to be moved by sorrow, but he would not allow his mind to be corroded by the killing intent. As the killing intent of the second ancient statue descended, the tearing force on Ning Fan's body was immediately strengthened by more than 2 times. This time, even the left half of Ning Fan's body began to melt. With the support of the undying qi, the melted part of his body was quickly reconstructed. It's still not enough. Don't tell me I have to use the power of my corpse. Sigh. Use it, use it. Big brother undying, I want to borrow your power. Please forgive me if I have offended you. The strange eyeball glanced at the third giant statue with a cautious expression, as if it was very afraid of the third statue. Undying body, appear. Rumble.as soon as the strange eyeball's voice fell, countless black tribulation clouds appeared above the valley. Those tribulation clouds were all formed by the undying chi. Black lightning bolts fell from the sky. Amidst the rumbling thunder, the appearance of the third giant statue gradually became clearer. It was a middle-aged man wearing a black Taoist robe. His long hair draped over his shoulders. His appearance was ordinary, but his eyes were so bright that no one dared to look at him directly. It was indescribable. It was as if his eyes contained the entire starry sky. There was also a kind of unforgettable longing in his eyes. It was the longing for the starry sky of his homeland. This longing was silent, but it enveloped Ning Fan in an instant, evoking his homesickness. Ning Fan seemed to have resonated with the third ancient statue. It was as if he could feel the emotions of the ancient statue's owner from countless years ago. I miss home. I really miss home, but my home is no longer there. Those were the emotions of the ancient statue's owner, not Ning Fan's. Two streams of blood tears flowed down from the third ancient statue's eyes. His home was no longer there. It was no longer there. This is the statue of the undying great emperor. Brat, take a good look. This person is the #1 great emperor under immortal sovereign Zido. Even a desolate saint would have to be polite to him. The strange eyeball's expression was filled with reverence. At the next moment, a terrifying aura that Ning Fan had never seen in his life suddenly pressed down from the undying ancient statue. That aura was a few times stronger than Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. That was the aura of the #1 immortal emperor under immortal sovereign Zido. At this moment, an ancient voice resounded between heaven and earth. It was the echo that was buried in the heavenly Tao reincarnation. It was the unresigned roar of the undying great emperor many years ago. I, Zido Immortal Cultivator, was born by defying the tribulation. I have no regrets. My life and death are all for Zido Immortal. If the world exists, I will exist. If the world perishes, I will perish. I hereby swear that I will kill all the foreign cultivators in this lifetime and return to my homeland. I have killed the evil corpse, but it betrayed Zido Immortal Domain and joined the Tribulation Lord, becoming the 9th barbarian god. This is the hatred of my life. The good corpse will bear the sorrow of my life. Stay in the illusionary world. This is the last home of Zido Immortal Cultivator. I will leave the undying void for you to protect yourself, the good corpse. Wait for me to kill all the foreign cultivators, then I will come here and bring you home. The voice resounded in the sky above the valley. It was the echo left by the undying great emperor in the heavenly Tao reincarnation. It had been passed down from ancient times until now. When the strange eyeball heard the voice again, its eyes suddenly became moist and tears flowed down. But he quickly stopped crying and focused on controlling the formation. He must help Ning Fan break the blessing technique. Then, he would kill Mo. Because this was the hatred of the undying great emperor's life. He must help the undying great emperor take revenge. The art of undying, the Tao of controlling fate. All heavenly fate, listen to my command. Undying star, appear. The eyeball suddenly activated its divine ability. Drops of blood mist flew into the sky from the lake. In an instant, the sky above the valley turned into night. In the endless night, there was a dazzling star that slowly descended. It was formed by the blood mist. It was a purple star that contained extremely terrifying undying chi. Its name was the Undying Star. There were 9 stars in the right eye of the undying great emperor. This undying star was one of the 9 stars. However, this purple star was covered with cracks for some unknown reason. The undying great emperor once fought against the foreign cultivators and was besieged by 12 saints. The 4th devil star in his right eye was shattered by someone. The shattered star turned into a drop of black blood. That drop of black blood contained half of the undying great emperor's memory and longing. There was also a trace of inheritance in it. This inheritance can only be obtained by cultivators with the undying physique. No one else could obtain it. It's a pity that apart from the undying great emperor, there hasn't been a second cultivator with the undying physique since the ancient times. I'm afraid that no one will be able to obtain the inheritance of the undying physique. The eyeball monster did not know that there was already a second undying physique in this world. Her name was Si Ming. She was killed by Ning Fan before she could grow. In order to help this brat break the blessing technique, I have even used up my inheritance blood. This old man has put in a lot of effort this time. I hope this kid won't let me down. He must kill Inma. The eyeball suddenly shouted. The purple star in the sky above the valley immediately turned into a ray of purple light and shot towards the lake. At the bottom of the lake, Ning Fan's expression changed. He could only watch the ray of purple light shooting towards his body. He wanted to dodge, but the eyeball monster's voice rang out at that moment, causing him to give up on the idea of dodging. This is the undying star, the fourth of the 9 divine stars in the right eye of the undying great emperor. It's the key to break the blessing technique. Accept it. Next, your physical body will collapse and reform 1,000 times. Without its power, you will surely die in the process. The eyeball suddenly reminded. As soon as the reminder sounded, Ning Fan's physical body began to collapse for the first time. This time, it wasn't just his flesh and blood, even his bones began to collapse. It started from his right hand, followed by the right half of his body and then his whole body. In just an instant, Ning Fan's robe was torn to shreds. His entire body turned into a mist of blood, leaving only his primordial spirit at the bottom of the lake. Even though his physical body had collapsed, his primordial spirit still had an extremely strong blessing power, which prevented it from flying more than 10 zhang away from where his physical body was collapsing. At this moment, the purple starlight flew into Ning Fan's primordial spirit. The small face of Ning Fan's primordial spirit hesitated for a moment, but in the end, it didn't resist the power. He chose to trust the eyeball for once. After all, he would die if he didn't trust the eyeball. He had no other choice. As soon as the purple starlight entered, Ning Fan's primordial spirit was immediately enveloped in a faint purple light. His physical body that had collapsed into a mist of blood was reconstructed in an instant. Then, his physical body collapsed once again. Reconstruct, collapse, reconstruct, collapse. The cycle of collapse and reconstruct was a torment on the willpower level. It was as if there was a tiny blade that was cutting off his flesh inch by inch. It was as if there was an iron chisel that was piercing through his bones. It was as if there was an iron clamp that was pulling out his fingernails and crushing his finger bones. Then, there was a new numbing sensation, followed by another round of excruciating pain. Under the reinforcement of the formation, the excruciating pain was magnified countless times. Ning Fan, however, remained indifferent. His willpower had been tempered too many times. He had tasted such pain too many times and was already numb to it. However, each time his physical body collapsed, his primordial spirit would suffer serious injuries. He couldn't ignore such injuries. After the 10th collapse, the small face of Ning Fan's primordial spirit was as pale as a piece of paper. After the 20th collapse, his primordial spirit became a little illusory. 30, 40. Finally, Ning Fan's primordial spirit was on the verge of dispersing and his consciousness was gradually lost. Once his primordial spirit disperses, he would die just like many people who died on the path of cultivation. Was he willing to die? Was he willing to die in a nameless way? Was he willing to die because of old ancestor Yin Mo's scheme? No, he wasn't willing. I can't disperse. The expression of Ning Fan's primordial spirit suddenly became as stubborn as a devil. If he wasn't willing to disperse, then even the heavens wouldn't be able to make him disperse. His lost consciousness was forcibly awakened by him. His primordial spirit that was on the verge of dispersing was forcefully stabilized by his Tao persistence. His stubbornness seemed to have resonated with the purple starlight. The purple starlight began to emit traces of warmth, causing his primordial spirit to become more solid and his consciousness to become clearer. His spirit was unprecedentedly focused. There seemed to be a voice suddenly resounding in Ning Fan's mind. He didn't know where the voice came from and it was hard to locate. Homesick. Very, very homesick. This drop of blood contains half of my life's memories and the longing for my hometown. Who is it? Who is talking? A strong force hit him. Ning Fan felt a sharp pain in his sea of consciousness and his consciousness fell into layers of hallucinations. No, those weren't hallucinations. They were pieces of broken and messy memories. In those memories, there was a young man of the barbarian race who was wrapped in animal skin, frantically running for his life on the grassland. He was just an ordinary barbarian without any cultivation base. Behind him, there were a few vein-opening cultivators riding on their flying swords, chasing after him and teasing him. Escape, I must escape. In the distant tribe, blood had already soared to the sky. His father and mother were dead. His homeland was invaded by Ziwei Immortal Domain. His relatives were all killed by those high and mighty Ziwei Immortal Domain. His home was gone. Enough playing, don't chase anymore. Kill this brat, we can go back and report. A vein-opening young man was tired of playing. He raised his flying sword and shot the barbarian youth who was desperately running in front of him. The barbarian youth only felt a wave of pain. His vision became darker and darker as he fell to the ground. Is he dead? Is this death? If I die, will I be able to see my father and mother? If I die, will I be able to go home? Before his death, the barbarian youth revealed a warm smile. Compared to living, death might be better. The barbarian youth's corpse fell to the ground. The few vein-opening cultivators landed on the ground, ready to cut off the barbarian youth's head and go back to report for merit. At this moment, the sky of the grassland suddenly turned into a large patch of purple. There was also a man shrouded in purple light walking towards the corpse of the young berserker with a slight frown. The man was wearing a purple robe and had a peerless elegance. There wasn't a trace of cultivation aura leaking out from his body, but it gave people a feeling of invincibility. The few vein-opening cultivators were stunned. How could they not know the man in front of them? He was an old monster who was famous in Ziwei and Northern Dipper Immortal Domains. It's him. The arrogant cultivator who calls himself Zido. A few months ago, this person killed 3,000 immortal emperors of Ziwei with his own strength. In that battle, a total of 16 saints died in his hands. The entire Ziwei Immortal Domain is now searching for this person. Rumor has it that after this person left, he met immortal emperors of Northern Dipper and escaped unscathed after the battle. This person hasn't reached the 4th step, but he already has the strength to fight against a 4th step cultivator. If he enters the 4th step, who among the immortal emperors of the heavens can compete with him? Will we die? Rumor has it that this person kills people like flies and is extremely evil. How can we survive if we meet him? The few vein-opening cultivators couldn't stop trembling and their faces were pale. The purple-robed youth didn't even look at them. He just flicked his finger and these juniors immediately exploded into a mist of blood, screaming and dying. So what if they bullied the weak? Each of these vein-opening cultivators had killed many barbarians and had a lot of karma on their hands. If they dared to kill, they must be prepared to be killed. Ziwei Immortal Domain and Northern Dipper Immortal Domain have completely surrendered to the Great Firmament Mortal World. Immortal emperors actually listened to the command of the mortal world and besieged the ancient barbarian world. Has Ziwei Immortal Domain and Northern Dipper Immortal Domain fallen to such an extent? The ancient barbarian domain, Ziwei Immortal Domain and Northern Dipper Immortal Domain have joined forces with the experts of the mortal world. I'm afraid that the ancient barbarian world will soon be breached. The purple-robed youth closed his eyes slightly. In this great era, it was difficult for him to protect himself and he was powerless to change the current situation. Those who hadn't reached the 4th step were still ants. He was only 1 step away from the 4th step, but it was still very far away. He hadn't seen his own path yet. What is my path? The purple-robed youth looked at the ancient barbarian world that was blazing with flames and suddenly felt a little irritated. He hated the cultivation world that was filled with the flames of war. Every day, countless mortals and weaklings died in the turmoil. Just like the barbarian youth in front of him who was used as a tool by the cultivators. After that, he was brutally killed. He didn't die. The purple-robed youth suddenly exclaimed. It was the barbarian youth who was lying in a pool of blood. He was groaning in pain and crawling up from the ground. This youth was indeed a mortal without any cultivation base. This youth's heart had been minced by the flying sword, but he was still alive. Could it be that this youth had some kind of special physique? There had never been such a physique in the cultivation world. How could this be? Why didn't I die? The barbarian youth suddenly burst into tears. His father and mother were both dead. He was the only one who was still alive. What was this? Why do the weak have to be bullied and killed by the strong? Why? Who set this rule? The barbarian youth didn't notice that there was a purple-robed youth standing beside him. He only cared about himself and wailed. The purple-robed youth seemed to have been enlightened by the barbarian youth's words. The question that had puzzled him for many years had finally been solved. Rules. Yes, this is the only thing that's missing in the path to the fourth step. I haven't set my own rules yet. The purple-robed youth looked at the barbarian youth deeply and asked. What's your name? The barbarian youth was shocked when he realized that there was someone else beside him. When he saw who it was, he was so frightened that he forgot to cry. The purple-robed youth's wanted order had already been sent to every major immortal domain. Even among the mortals, there were many who recognized him and regarded him as a devil who would kill without batting an eye. I'm Mo. The barbarian youth answered weakly. Ning Fan was slightly shocked and temporarily woke up from his memories. He actually saw the memories of the undying emperor. However, why was their old ancestor Mo an immortal sovereign Zido in the memories of the undying emperor? Undying, Mo, and mourning death. These three people seemed to have some kind of inexplicable connection. What surprised Ning Fan the most was that he actually saw the scene of immortal King Zido reaching the fourth step of the Tao-seeking realm. In the memories, Zido had obviously not stepped into the fourth step and become an immortal sovereign. However, he was already very close to the fourth step and he was asking questions. What exactly is my path? Rules. Yes, this is the only thing that's missing in the path to the fourth step. I haven't set my own rules yet. Ning Fan, a mere second step true immortal, actually heard immortal sovereign Zido's comprehension of the fourth step with his own ears. Even though it was just two simple sentences, it was enough to astonish him. Does this mean that I've seen the path to the fourth step ahead of others? Many sages spent their entire lives trying to find out how to break through to the fourth step. However, he just saw it in such a simple manner. In the memories of the undying emperor. Chapter 931. Being able to see the path to the fourth step in the undying emperor's memories was definitely a great opportunity. Such an opportunity would not improve Ning Fan's cultivation base, but it would plant a seed in his heart, a seed that would lead him to the fourth step. If Ning Fan reaches the peak of the third step in the future, he might have a chance to step into the fourth step because of what he saw today. In this world, there were very few people who could step into the third step saint realm. There were even fewer people who could see the path to the fourth step. Dao, 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 only by having one's own path and rules can one step into the fourth step. Ning Fan held his breath and closed his eyes, wanting to see more from the undying emperor's memories. Gradually, the undying emperor's voice rang in his ears again. I miss home, a lot, good corpse. If I kill all the foreign cultivators, I will return to the illusionary world and bring you home. Broken memories appeared in front of Ning Fan's eyes once again. These memories were the memories of the undying emperor. However, these memories were too fragmented. There were no coherent fragments like before, and they could not be pieced together. Ning Fan carefully searched through those memories, trying to find some complete memories. Suddenly, he found some of the more complete memories. In the memories, the undying emperor was wearing a black Taoist robe and sitting in the middle of the galaxy. His right eye was bleeding black blood. The fourth devil star in his right eye had already shattered. Before that, he was besieged by 12 saints from the outer realm. In this battle, he managed to force the 12 incipient saints to retreat, but he was also heavily injured. It's not enough. It's still not enough. Even though I'm already the strongest immortal emperor under the immortal sovereign, I have yet to step into the third step. It's too strenuous for me to fight against a third step saint realm expert with my second step body. My Tao is immortality. It's an endless life. My Tao is immortality. There's no death. This Tao is missing half of it. It's too difficult to step into the saint realm with an incomplete Tao. I don't have much time left. The battle in the outer realm is getting more and more intense. The undying emperor sighed softly. There's no strongest Tao in this world. Every Tao has its weaknesses and flaws. The Tao of immortality was too heaven-defying. Although he was an immortal emperor, not even a desolate saint could kill him. The undying Tao's flaws were also extremely great. It was extremely difficult for cultivators who cultivated this Tao to become saints, because the Tao wasn't complete enough. Third step saints cultivated the power of samsara, and samsara meant perfection. Only by cutting off all the flaws in oneself and abandoning all the flaws could one be qualified to become a flawless saint. Since ancient times, there had been 3 ways to become a sage: proving the Tao with strength, severing the 3 corpses, and becoming a sage through virtue. Becoming a sage through merit was the easiest way to become a sage. Most sages became sages this way. The severing of the 3 corpses was rather difficult. Out of 100 sages, only 5 or 6 would choose this method to become a sage. It was even more difficult to prove one's Tao through strength. Since ancient times, only a few people had succeeded, and the sages who had succeeded had all cultivated all the way to the 4th step without exception. Those who dared to prove their Tao with force were at least immortal emperors. The undying emperor sighed even more heavily. Although he was the #1 celestial emperor under Zido, he knew his own limitations. He knew that he did not have the qualifications to become a celestial emperor. It was already difficult for him to become a celestial emperor. It was almost impossible for him to prove his Tao through strength. The method of becoming a sage through merit was the most likely to succeed. However, even if he reached the 3rd step, he would still be a weakling at the 3rd step. I'll just sever the 3 corpses. Even if the chances of becoming a sage are slim, I still have to give it a try. I've killed many people in my life and I've committed heinous crimes. Today, I'll sever all the killings in my life and become the evil corpse. The undying emperor raised his hand and grabbed forward. Boundless starlight immediately turned into a sword. He held it in his hand and slashed at himself. This slash did not injure the undying emperor at all. However, a towering blood-red light shot out from his body. The blood-red light gradually condensed. After a long time, a youth wrapped in a beast-skin dress walked out of the blood-red light. His eyes were cold and emotionless. That was the undying emperor's appearance when he was young. It was exactly the same as when he was escaping from the barbarian race. Mo. The undying emperor looked at the evil corpse and murmured his own name. Memories flooded his mind. He recalled that many years ago, when his country had fallen and he had escaped from his tribe in a panic. It was such a miserable scene. Later on, he met immortal Emperor Zido. Later on, immortal Emperor Zido pacified Zido immortal domain and gave him a home. Today, he was respectfully called the Undying Emperor by the people of the world. The name Mo had long been abandoned. It was better to give this name to the evil corpse. Evil corpse Mo, I've severed you today. From now on, you must protect Zido immortal domain with me. Do you understand? The Undying Emperor said solemnly to the evil corpse. His eyes were filled with expectation. Yes. The evil corpse Mo cupped his fists and bowed to the Undying Emperor with an extremely respectful expression. Very good. The Undying Emperor nodded with satisfaction. Today, he had used up a lot of energy to sever the evil corpse. It seemed like he needed to rest for a few days before he could sever the good corpse. When the three corpses become one, even if he cultivated the Tao of immortality, he would still have a chance to become a Sage Realm expert. I must become a Sage Realm expert. Only then will I have the strength to protect Zido immortal domain. This is my home. In this part of his memories, Ning Fan saw the scene where the Undying Emperor severed the three corpses. Proving the Tao with strength, severing the three corpses and achieving the Tao with virtue. These were the three methods to become a Sage Realm expert in ancient times. They had long been lost in history. Very few people in the current world knew about them. Before this, Ning Fan did not know much about becoming a Sage Realm expert, let alone the specific method to do so. Today, he learned about the three methods from the Undying Emperor's memories. He even saw the scene where the Undying Emperor severed the three corpses with his own eyes. It was another opportunity. First, he saw Zido advancing to the third step of the Tao-seeking realm. Then, he saw the Undying Corpse severing technique advancing to the third step. Today, he really obtained a lot of opportunities. To Ning Fan, the fourth step might still be very far away, but the third step was not that far away. Currently, Ning Fan was already at the crossing truth realm. One day, he would break through the void renunciation and thought fragmentation realms and cultivate step by step to the immortal emperor realm. At that time, he would also face the bottleneck of becoming a Sage Realm expert. At that time, the scene he saw today would certainly give him a lot of experience to become a Sage Realm expert. Proving the Tao with strength, severing the three corpses and achieving the Saint Realm with virtue. What the Undying Emperor chose was the three-corpse severing technique. His evil corpse was called Enmo. The Undying Emperor bestowed his own name to the evil corpse. Ning Fan's eyes slightly moved. He remembered that the three ancient statues summoned by the strange eyeball were the evil corpse Enmo, the good corpse Dao Wang and the self-corpse Undying. Previously, when he heard about the evil corpse, good corpse and self-corpse, he did not understand the profound meaning behind them. Now, he understood everything and thought to himself. In the past, in order to become a Sage Realm expert, the Undying Emperor had severed his baleful qi and condensed it into the evil corpse. He was then given the name Enmo. After that, he must have severed the good corpse. Perhaps the name of the good corpse was Dao Wang. As for his self-corpse, it was the Undying Body. Perhaps, this was the relationship between Enmo, Dao Wang and the Undying Body. While feeling anxious, Ning Fan recalled the words of the Undying Emperor that reverberated in the heavenly Tao reincarnation. I have severed the evil corpse, but it betrayed the Zido immortal region and joined the Tribulation Lord, becoming the ninth barbarian god. This is the hatred of my life. It seemed like even though the Undying Emperor had severed the evil corpse, it had betrayed him in the end. The evil corpse Enmo had become the ninth barbarian god. He was the old man with the ancient statue on the 9th floor of the heavenly imperial court. The strange eyeball seemed to have a deep relationship with Dao Wang, Enmo, and the Undying Emperor. Perhaps it was related to Enmo's betrayal that he had to kill him. With Ning Fan's intelligence, he was able to deduce some of the reasons from the Undying Emperor's words. In fact, these deductions were very close to the truth. The remaining memories were too fragmented. Ning Fan could no longer see any coherent fragments from them. Gradually, the messy memories faded away. Waves of pain from the collapse of his physical body pulled Ning Fan back to reality. Unknowingly, his physical body had experienced more than 170 collapses. Each time it collapsed, Ning Fan's primordial spirit would be injured. Fortunately, his primordial spirit was nourished by the Undying Star. Those injuries were quickly healed. This undying power was different from the starlight healing technique. Its healing effect was much stronger than any other star techniques. As the number of collapses of his physical body gradually increased, the blessing power in Ning Fan's body finally showed signs of loosening. After his physical body was reconstructed for the 186th time, Ning Fan's primordial spirit rushed out and almost broke out of his physical body. Hee hee. It's almost over. The blessing technique is about to be broken. Brat, you must hold on. Previously, you were hit by Enmo's blessing technique. There should be 9 young barbarian calamities, but only 3 of them came. Once the blessing technique is broken, the next 6 calamities will descend at the same time. You must be mentally prepared. Of course, the movements at the bottom of the lake could not be hidden from the strange eyeball. Seeing that Ning Fan's blessing technique was successfully broken, it could not help but remind him. Ning Fan's heart skipped a beat. He subconsciously touched his storage pouch. The purple python bone in his storage pouch contained a large amount of life force. He had obtained it from the snake-haired demon cultivator. Next, 6 calamities would descend at the same time. I wonder if the life force in the python bone is enough. Bang! Bang! Ning Fan's physical body exploded and reconstructed again and again. The undying star that was shot into his body had been protecting him, preventing his primordial spirit from suffering any damage. In this way, no matter how many times Ning Fan's physical body collapsed, the damage would not be too great. 200 times, 300 times, 400 times. 1,000 times. After a day and a night, Ning Fan's physical body finally collapsed for 1,000 times. At this moment, there was no longer a trace of blessing power left in his body. The blessing technique that was planted in his body had already disappeared along with the collapse of his physical body. Old ancestor Enmo's plan had failed. With a thought, Ning Fan's primordial spirit immediately rushed out of his physical body and moved freely. After returning to his physical body, there was no longer any abnormality. Hee. There's no need to try anymore. Your primordial spirit has already returned to normal. Quickly hold your breath and get ready to deal with the calamities. On the shore of the lake, the strange eyeball reminded Ning Fan while panting. Controlling a corner of the saint's formation marks was really not easy. After a day and a night of exhaustion, the strange eyeball was already exhausted. However, the excitement in his heart was indescribable. He had already helped Ning Fan break the blessing technique. Now, the success rate of killing Enmo was already 40%. That's 40%. It's not low. If he can help Ning Fan merge the 4 types of power into one, the success rate will increase to 50%. Big brother immortal, this time, little brother will definitely avenge you. The power of the saint's formation marks in the valley was finally exhausted. The 100 Dao crystal towers turned into crystal ashes and scattered on the ground. The formation light collapsed with a loud bang, turning into countless rays of light and fading away. The countless barbarian statues in the sky disappeared one after another. In the end, there was not a single one left. The ceremony to break the blessing technique had ended. However, Ning Fan's calamities had arrived as scheduled. A shadow suddenly appeared in the sky above the valley. It was the shadow of the young barbarian statue that Ning Fan had created when he became the young barbarian priest. At the moment when the shadow appeared, millions of red clouds appeared in the sky above the valley, covering the entire sky, making it look as red as fire. At this moment, Ning Fan's 4th young barbarian calamity had arrived. The calamity came without a sound. The moment the red clouds appeared, Ning Fan's skin and flesh shriveled. His life force was being devoured by the barbarian marks in his body at a crazy rate. The number of barbarian marks kept increasing after devouring the life force. Ning Fan's chi became weaker and weaker. In just a breath's time, 1/10 of the life force in his body had been drained. The 4th calamity was much fiercer than the previous 3. Without any hesitation, Ning Fan took out the purple python bone and began to crazily absorb the life force within it. The life force in the python bone was extremely huge. The 3rd calamity only consumed 1/10 of the python bone's life force. There was still 90% of the life force left in the bone. It was enough to pass the 4th calamity. Ning Fan's body emitted a red light that soared into the sky. The lake water that was as black as ink was dyed with a layer of demonic red. The life force in the python bone flowed into Ning Fan's body at a crazy rate. His shriveled body immediately recovered to its original state. When there was only 60% of the life force left in the python bone, Ning Fan had already passed half of the fourth calamity. The 9 barbarian calamity has a total of 9 calamities. From the third calamity onwards, a certain amount of ancestral barbarian blood will be produced after each successful calamity. In the history of the ancient barbarian world, there are very few young barbarians who could pass the 9 calamities with their own strength. Even those young barbarians who were born in ancient barbarian clans would mostly stop at the 6th calamity. The power of the 6th calamity is enough to kill an immortal king. As for the 7th calamity, it's even more powerful. For those who can't pass the calamity, they can only set up a heaven-deceiving formation to avoid it. As for those who use tricks to avoid the calamity, they won't be able to cultivate ancestral blood. This kid is almost passing the 4th calamity. It won't be difficult for him to pass the 5th calamity. The chance of him passing the 6th calamity isn't high. If this kid can't withstand the power of the calamity, I will help him set up a heaven-deceiving formation to avoid the calamity and save him. His eyeballs stared at the surface of the lake with full vigilance. If Ning Fan couldn't withstand the calamity, he would save him. Speaking of which, the reason why old ancestor Yin Mo held back the last 6 calamities when he schemed against Ning Fan was because he was afraid that the calamity would be dangerous. That person still had ulterior motives towards Ning Fan. Naturally, he did not want Ning Fan to die in the calamity. Thus, he suppressed Ning Fan's calamity on his own accord. From the 4th calamity onwards, the calamity would become more and more dangerous. However, the benefits of passing the calamity were not small. Every time one passes a calamity, they would be able to cultivate a certain amount of ancestral blood of the barbarian clan. Ancestral blood was difficult to cultivate. Even an ancient immortal venerable would find it difficult to cultivate a drop of it without millions of years of bitter cultivation. In the ancient barbarian world, it was rather difficult for ordinary barbarian cultivators to cultivate barbarian blood. Only the young barbarian clan had the heaven-defying qualification to cultivate ancestral blood. The young barbarian clan was the inheritor of the barbarian clan. They were the successors of the next barbarian ancestor. It was very difficult for them to be born. Every clan had to pay a huge price to produce one. Once they are born, the young barbarian clan could use the 9 calamities to cultivate ancestral blood and build a good foundation to inherit the position of barbarian ancestor in the future. If the 5 ancestors of the Fan clan did not pay with their lives, Ning Fan would not have been affected by the barbarian summoning technique. If he did not possess the power of the calamity blood, Ning Fan would not have been able to become the 8th generation young barbarian summoning technique. A series of opportunities led Ning Fan to trigger the 9 barbarian realm barbarian tribulation. This tribulation was a great fortune that was enough for him to cultivate ancestral blood. Ning Fan passed the 4th calamity bit by bit. Another drop of ancestral barbarian blood was born in his body. It was the 2nd drop of ancestral blood that Ning Fan cultivated with his own strength. Unfortunately, as soon as this ancestral blood was born, it was targeted by the tyrannical calamity blood. The ancestral barbarian blood in his body was being devoured by the calamity blood bit by bit. The red light of the calamity sense on Ning Fan's body became stronger and stronger. A few hours later, this drop of ancestral blood was completely devoured by the calamity blood. As for Ning Fan's calamity blood, the grade of his calamity blood also increased step by step from the 1-star true blood. It was not far from breaking through to the 2-star true blood. The higher the level of the calamity blood, the harder it was to cultivate. Now that he had devoured a drop of ancestral blood, he was actually unable to break through to the 2-star true blood. However, after inspecting his body, Ning Fan's eyes shone brightly. He was satisfied. He could feel that after devouring this drop of ancestral blood of the barbarian race, his strength had significantly increased. The Taitsung calamity spirit with 1-star true blood could defeat all cultivators below the thought fragmentation realm. It could even fight against an early thought fragmentation realm expert. Of course, it could only fight against an early thought fragmentation realm expert. It was still a situation where he would lose more than he would win. Now that Ning Fan's calamity blood had improved greatly, he could feel his power surging out of his body. There were already 1,700 thunderbolts of tribulation sense that were circling around his body. The current him could fight against a mid-thought fragmentation realm expert with just the strength of his calamity blood. Moreover, he would win more than he would lose. His strength had improved tremendously after just passing through the fourth calamity. If he passes through more calamities and obtains more ancestral blood of the barbarian race, to what extent could the grade of his calamity blood grow? Ning Fan's eyes sparkled. This calamity was a calamity, but it was also a great fortune. How could he miss it? At this moment, the number of red clouds in the sky above the valley doubled. The fifth calamity had arrived. Chapter 932. The power of the fifth damage tribulation far surpassed that of the fourth. There were many barbarians in the ancient barbarian world. The young priests of each tribe were elites selected from billions of people. However, even these elites of the berserkers had to give it their all when they went through the fifth stage of the trial. Only then would they have a small chance of getting through it. Out of 100 young priest barbarians, it would be good if 20 of them could survive the fifth trial. The sky above the valley was filled with red clouds. The pressure coming from the red clouds was getting stronger and stronger, and there were even sounds of ancient barbarians chanting scriptures coming from the red clouds. In the past, the god of berserkers cultivated during the endless tribulations. The gods came out to offer sacrifices to him, thus he obtained great merit. The chanting gradually gathered together, and an invisible pressure enveloped the entire valley. Ning Fan sat cross-legged at the bottom of the lake. At the moment when the fifth trial descended, his physical body immediately shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ning Fan's expression turned grim as the life force in his body was draining away at a crazy rate. The speed at which his life force was draining away was more than twice as fast as when he was in the fourth trial. In the midst of his seriousness, there was also some anticipation. If he could get through the fifth trial and cultivate another drop of barbarian tribe ancestral blood, he wondered if his Jia blood would be able to break through the realm of 2 stars true blood. There was still more than half of the remaining life force in the purple python bone. Ning Fan crazily absorbed it and refined it into his body, gradually restoring his shriveled body to its original state. However, this recovery was only temporary. The amount of life force required by the fifth sundering realm was simply too vast. As time passed, the life force within the python bone began to dwindle. An hour later, the python bone's vitality was exhausted, and with a crack, it broke into two. Ning Fan's eyes immediately turned cold. At this moment, he had only gone through less than half of the fifth stage. However, the life force within the python's bones had already been used up. The amount of life force required for the fifth stage was simply too great. Just a python bone that had been used many times was not enough to get through the fifth stage. Without the python bone to replenish his life force, his physical body withered and aged again. In just 10 breaths of time, his skin was so dry and wrinkled that he looked like an old man with one foot in the grave. Regret gradually appeared in his eyes. Regret that he didn't have enough life force to pass the fifth test. If he was able to pass the fifth stage and cultivate another drop of ancestral blood, the benefits would be obvious. Unfortunately, the life force of the purple python bone was limited. It was not enough to support Ning Fan to get through the fifth stage. He had comprehended the ultimate divine art of the Fuli race, the finger of returning ruin, which allowed him to devour the life force of others. This place was the space of the tower. There were no animals or animals. Naturally, there were no humans or cultivators. Other than Ning Fan, there was only the eyeball monster and Meow Meow immortal. If he used the ultimate void finger to seize the vitality of some eyeballs and wise words immortal venerable, would he be able to pass the fifth form? In the profound Een world, there were tens of thousands of women. If he could open the profound Een world, would he be able to take away the vitality of these women? Ning Fan of these swords. Of Fan of kings of. He wasn't a good person. For the sake of transcending the tribulation, he would do things that would rob others of their life force. However, he wasn't willing to attack the eyeball monster and Miao Yen, and it was even more impossible for him to attack those human cauldrons. The fifth strain required an enormous amount of life force. To a cultivator, losing a small amount of life force wouldn't cause them any harm. But if they lost too much life force, their cultivation base would be damaged, and their life would be in danger. The eyeball monster had the cultivation of an immortal emperor, so the life force in his body was naturally boundless. As an ancient immortal venerable, the life force in his body was naturally not small. However, even if the life force of the two of them were added together, it might not necessarily be more than the life force of the python bone. In order to overcome the fifth suffering, he would need to seize at least half of the life force in their bodies. Not to mention whether he could do it with his current strength. Even if he could, he was unwilling to do so. The cultivation level of the 10,000 human cauldrons was not high. The life force in their bodies was even lesser. Perhaps it would not be enough for Ning Fan to get through the fifth stage even if he sucked everyone's life force dry. Sucking their life force dry would mean death. He would never kill his own cauldrons. This was the principle he had set since the beginning of his cultivation. In the past, when he was killed by old ancestor poisonous dragon with 7 arrows, only Miao Yan helped him. Even though he did not help her a lot, he still remembered Miao Yan's kindness. That was why he helped Miao Yan time and time again during the great calamity of the savage wilderness. He would not attack his friends. The origin of the eyeball was unknown and its motive for getting close to Ning Fan was not pure. It was either using him or scheming against him. However, no matter what, Ning Fan managed to break the blessing technique with the help of the eyeball. Thus, he owed it a favor. Before the eyeball attacks him, Ning Fan would not take the initiative to harm it. This was also his principle. So, I have no choice but to give up on the fifth stage. Ning Fan sighed softly. The fifth stage of the tribulation was dangerous. It was a gamble of life and death. If he could get through it, the benefits would be great. If he could not get through it, his life force would be exhausted and he would die in the tribulation. Seeing that he could not get through the fifth stage of the tribulation, Ning Fan felt regretful. However, he did not panic. Instead, he remained calm. He had been cultivating the Tao for many years. Naturally, his mind was not weak. That eyeball monster still needed his power to plot against Inma. It would certainly not watch him die in the tribulation. The eyeball monster looked very calm. It must have a way to help him get through the fifth stage of the tribulation and save his life. However, there must be a reason why the eyeball monster did not attack him immediately. The reason why it did not attack him might be due to some kind of kindness or some other scheme. Ning Fan frowned. He did not like the feeling of being dependent on others. He could face death at any time during the tribulation. Why should he rely on others to save him? However, without the replenishment of life force, it would be difficult for him to protect himself in the tribulation with his own strength. Is there any way for me to protect myself? Ning Fan pondered in silence. Suddenly, his eyes flickered. He felt a slight tremble coming from his primordial spirit in his dantian. Ning Fan's primordial spirit was wearing a jade locket on its neck. It was the yin-yang locket. A ray of sword light was coiling around his body. It was the memory-severing Tao sword. He was holding a walnut-sized fruit in his arms, slowly absorbing the vast power of the fruit. It was the dark time fruit that he had forcefully obtained from the dark race. The tiny body of his primordial spirit contained an illusionary pill that was as ethereal as a dream. It was the life illusion pill. During the Sun Luo War against Eastern Heaven, Ning Fan killed Great Emperor Mo Luo's crystal slave, the Thousand Leaves Devil Luo, by chance and obtained a grain of illusion devil dust. He then used it to concoct an life illusion pill and kept it in his body without using it. The grade of the life illusion pill was not high. It was just a 4th revolution pill. However, it had a heaven-defying medicinal effect. Once this pill is activated, the dantian of the person who consumes the pill will produce 3 traces of illusory flames. After that, Every time the person who consumes the pill dies, one of the illusory flames will be extinguished, allowing the cultivator to be reborn from the ashes. If the illusory flames are not used up, the person who consumes the pill will not die. If the illusory flames are exhausted, the person who consumes the pill will not be able to be reborn from the ashes after his death. This pill had a strong illusory power. The person who consumes the pill can be reborn with the power of the illusory flames after his death. However, outsiders would not be able to tell that the person who consumes the pill is not dead yet. Even the heavenly Tao would be deceived by this pill. In short, this was a miraculous pill that could bring one back to life after death. Ning Fan's eyes flashed. Ever since he concocted the life illusion pill in the past, he had always kept it as a life-saving pill. He had never used it before. Today, however, he could use it. He did not know if this pill was as heaven-defying as the rumors said. Perhaps, it could save his life from the tribulation. Perhaps, it could not. If there is no other way to resist the tribulation, I can give it a try. As his life force flowed away rapidly, Ning Fan's appearance became older and older. He secretly activated the medicinal power of the life illusion pill. Just as he was about to transcend the tribulation with the help of this pill, he suddenly heard the gloating voice of the strange eyeball. Hee hee. I thought you would be able to get through the 5th trial. However, it seems like you won't be able to. The descendant of the Lai origin sect can't possibly only have this little ability, right? The Lai origin sect was the sect of the ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor. Ning Fan was the disciple of the ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor. Thus, he was naturally considered as the descendant of the Lai origin sect. Ning Fan's brows slightly furrowed after hearing what the eyeball said. He did not like the fact that the strange eyeball looked down on the Lai origin sect and the ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor. However, the truth was that he really could not get through the 5th trial. He seemed to have embarrassed the ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor. Brat, are you a pig? You are already the young minister of Barbarian Realm. If your life force is not enough, why don't you use the mountain and sea curse? Even though the first 5 trials require a large amount of life force, as a barbarian cultivator, as long as you comprehend the mountain and sea curse, to a certain degree, you will still be able to get through the 5th trial. It's not the 6th trial. Could it be that this brat doesn't know the mountain and sea curse? The strange eyeball suddenly realized something. After a moment of silence, it asked with a strange look. Brat, could it be that you don't know the mountain and sea curse? What is the mountain and sea curse? Ning Fan was slightly puzzled. You don't even know the mountain and sea curse? The barbarian cultivator who helped you to summon the barbarian didn't teach you this technique? The strange eyeball was surprised. No. That barbarian cultivator is really irresponsible. Since he helped you to summon the barbarian, he is your master. He has the responsibility to teach you the mountain and sea curse. Without this technique, you will be courting death when you pass the 3rd trial of the young minister of Barbarian Realm. Does he want to kill you? The strange eyeball said with dissatisfaction. He really wants to kill me. Ning Fan shook his head indifferently. His barbarian summoning technique was planted by the 5th ancestor. At that time, the 5th ancestor was forced into a corner by Ning Fan. Wasn't it because he wanted to plant a barbarian summoning technique on Ning Fan to kill him? Unfortunately, the 5th ancestor did not expect that Ning Fan would use the barbarian summoning technique to become the 8th generation young minister of the Fan clan. It was a great opportunity for him. As for the mountain and sea curse, the 5th ancestor really did not teach it to Ning Fan. What is the mountain and sea curse? Is it very helpful for me to pass the 3rd trial? Ning Fan asked. It's more than helpful. This is the basic ability of the young minister of Barbarian Realm. I really want to know how you became the young minister of Barbarian Realm. You don't even know the mountain and sea curse. Forget it. I will teach you the mnemonic chant of the mountain and sea curse, now. You just need to pass the 5th trial. As for the 6th trial, you definitely won't be able to pass it. Later, I will help you lay down a heaven-deceiving formation and help you pass the 6th trial. However, if I take action, you won't be able to cultivate the ancestral blood even if you pass the 3rd trial. It turned out that once the strange eyeball takes action, he would not be able to obtain any benefits from the 3rd trial. This was the reason why the strange eyeball did not take action until now. Ning Fan was enlightened. While the strange eyeball was muttering to itself, it shot out a ray of gray light that went straight to the bottom of the lake. That ray of gray light went into Ning Fan's head. All of a sudden, lines of ancient barbarian mantras appeared in his mind. The barbarians are the ancestors of nature, the sex of all realms. The barbarian is born in the mountains and seas, attaining the Tao in nature, returning to the mountains and seas after death. The 9 mountains and 8 seas are one world, the reincarnation of heaven and earth is opened in the palm. The barbarian incantation was somewhat similar to the ancient savage wilderness region's barbarian ancestral sutra. However, that was only the first sentence. The content after that was completely different. The eyeball did not know that Ning Fan had the illusion pill to protect himself. After he taught Ning Fan the mountain and sea incantation, he immediately began to set up a heaven-deceiving formation at the shore of the lake. Once Ning Fan's damaged tribulation fails, he would activate the formation to protect him. Ning Fan silently recited the mnemonic chant of the mountain and sea incantation. Gradually, his body formed a close connection with heaven and earth. His heart became calmer, and he seemed to hear the sound of the lake. It was not the sound of flowing water, but the sound of a heartbeat, like a human heartbeat. Dong dong, dong dong, dong dong. The lake had life, and only berserkers could sense its life. Because the barbarian cultivators were the ancestors of nature, and they cultivated the Tao of nature. Dong dong, dong dong, dong dong. Ning Fan could hear the heartbeat in the valley. This mountain also had life, and its form of life was something that the cultivators of other races could not understand. Only the barbarians could understand it. You might think that humans are alive while the mountains and rivers are dead, but in the eyes of the barbarians, the mountains and rivers are the same as humans. Dong dong, dong dong, dong dong. More heartbeats entered Ning Fan's ears. They were the heartbeats of countless barbarians under the silent ground. After the barbarians died, they would not enter the cycle of reincarnation. Their cycle of reincarnation was different from Zi-Do immortal region. After they died, their souls would disperse into the mountains and seas, blending into the grass, trees, and rocks. They did not reincarnate, but their souls were attached to the mountains and seas, watching over their descendants forever. The piece of land that was refined into the space of the copper pagoda was a piece of land from the ancient barbarian world. It was obtained by the Dao Wang great emperor and refined into the pagoda. This piece of land used to give birth to countless barbarians. The heroic spirits of those dead barbarians still resided here. That kind of existence was not something that Ning Fan could understand. However, he did hear the heartbeats of those ancient barbarians, and they would forever remain in this piece of land. At this moment, Ning Fan could even see an inexhaustible amount of life force in the mountains, rivers, heaven, and earth. Humans had life force, so they were alive. However, the mountains, rivers, lakes, and seas did not necessarily have no life force. If there is no life force, it would be a barren mountain or a dead sea. The Tao that Ning Fan cultivated in the past allowed him to see the life force of humans, beasts, and plants. However, he could not see the life force of the mountains, rivers, lakes, and seas. Ning Fan felt like he was getting to know this world again. It turned out that different Daos led to different views of the world. The life force of the mountains, rivers, lakes, and seas was naturally much greater than that of humans. In the past, Ning Fan could not see this. Now that he could see it, he naturally understood the reason why the eyeball monster gave him the mountain and sea incantation. Being able to see the life force of the mountains, rivers, lakes, and seas meant that he could plunder and devour it for his own use. Compared to the life force of the mountains and seas here, the life force contained in the purple python bone was too little. With these mountains and rivers in hand, there was no need to worry about not having enough vitality. There was no need to worry about being unable to cross the fifth trial. At this moment, Ning Fan could only be considered as a true barbarian cultivator after learning the mountain and sea incantation. At this moment, as long as he willed it, he would be able to extract a large amount of life force from the mountains, rivers, lakes, and seas for his own cultivation. Ning Fan waved his hand. Immediately, a black and red vortex appeared in front of him, emitting a boundless suction force. The endless life force hidden deep under the ground was immediately attracted by the vortex and flowed into Ning Fan's body at a crazy rate. Ning Fan's old body immediately recovered its youth. Time passed bit by bit. The fifth trial was coming to an end. 2 bloodlines gradually appeared in Ning Fan's body. More and more bloodlines gathered and gradually turned into 2 drops of blood. The aura force of the blood droplets became heavier and heavier. At the moment when Ning Fan completely passed the fifth trial, the 2 drops of blood completely turned into 2 drops of ancestral-level barbarian blood. After passing the fifth trial, I can actually cultivate 2 drops of ancestral-level barbarian blood. Ning Fan's eyes flashed. However, at the next moment, the domineering tribulation blood began to devour the 2 drops of ancestral-level barbarian blood. As the devouring continued, the grade of Ning Fan's tribulation blood finally broke through the 2 stars true blood realm and took a small step towards the 3rd star realm. It was just a small step. In order to cultivate to the 3rd star true blood realm, he would need to cultivate more ancestral-level barbarian blood. However, the improvement of his strength was still considerable. After completely breaking through to the 2 stars true blood realm, Ning Fan could fight against late thought-shattering realm cultivators with just the power of his tribulation blood. Alright. The 5th trial is finally over. The 6th trial is coming soon. Young man, I will activate the heaven-deceiving formation and help you pass the 6th trial. The eyeball was about to activate the heaven-deceiving formation but was stopped by Ning Fan. Senior, please wait. Can you let me try and see if I can pass the 6th trial with my own strength? This. Alright. It's not a bad idea to let you try. However, once you fail the trial, I will immediately activate the formation. You must not die before I kill Inma. Even though the eyeball agreed to Ning Fan's request, it was still very nervous. The next trial was the 6th trial. In the ancient barbarian world, only 3 or 4 out of 100 young priest barbarians could pass it. There were also many young priest barbarians who thought that they were strong and wanted to pass the trial with their own strength. However, they died with hatred and were burnt to ashes in the 6th trial, the fire of misfortune beast. This young man has many tricks up his sleeves. He might be able to hold on for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. The eyeball thought to itself. The 5th casualty was over. Moments later, the red clouds above the valley suddenly burst into flames. At the center of the red clouds, the shadow of a 6-legged strange beast slowly appeared. It was as huge as the sky. It had 2 heads and no horns. Its whole body was fiery red and it looked down at the valley coldly. The moment the shadow of the strange beast appeared, Ning Fan's life force began to burn like flames. His expression changed instantly. The 6th trial had arrived. However, the form of this trial was different from the previous 5. If it wasn't for Ning Fan's great 5 elemental physique which could restrain the damage of fire, he would certainly be severely injured by the fire of life force. It was a kind of black and red flame. It was filled with densely packed flame runes, giving it a bewitching beauty. Ning Fan tried to suppress the burning flame in his body but he realized that the power of the flame was too strong. It was not like the flames that he usually saw. When the flame burned, it emitted the sound of wind and thunder, giving off an imposing aura that soared to the sky. Roar! The shadow of the giant beast above the valley suddenly let out a bestial roar. In the midst of the roar, the life force of the mountains and seas turned into the nourishment of the flame, setting it ablaze. As the giant beast activated its ability, countless black and red flames surged towards the bottom of the lake where Ning Fan was. At this moment, the entire valley was submerged in a sea of fire. Even the Tao law of the great Tao became distorted in the evaporation of the flames. The mountains and rivers were melting while the lake water was evaporating. Heaven and earth were burning red. Venerated Miao Yen, who was far away, was shocked. She opened her beautiful eyes and stared at the direction of the valley in bewilderment. At this moment, the sea of fire in the valley was monstrous. The intensity of the fire was so great that even an immortal king realm expert would not dare to enter the valley without permission. She did not know what Ning Fan was doing in the valley. She only knew that the sea of fire in the valley was monstrous. The power of the flames was so overbearing that she had never seen anything like it in her life. She did not know if Ning Fan was safe in the valley. He should be fine. After all, Ning Fan is so strong. Devour. The life force in his body was madly burned away. Ning Fan opened his mouth and swallowed the endless life force of the mountains and rivers into his stomach to replenish the life force that he had lost. However, the speed of the life force burning was too fast. In just the first breath, the life force of the entire valley within 1,000 li had been used up by Ning Fan. All the mountains had turned into barren hills and the rivers had lost their former color. In the second breath, Ning Fan had used up all the life force of the mountains and rivers within the area of 10,000 li. The third breath, the fourth breath, the fifth breath, even though the life force of the mountains and rivers was abundant, it was not inexhaustible. According to the rate of consumption, even if Ning Fan used up all the life force of the mountains and rivers in the space of the copper pagoda, it would still be difficult for him to pass through 1/10 of the sixth trial. It was no wonder that there were very few people who could pass through the sixth trial since ancient times. This trial was indeed extremely difficult to pass. As for the 7th, 8th, and 9th stages, how terrifying would they be? If I'm just an ordinary barbarian cultivator, I would probably stop at the 6th trial. However, I'm not. What I have isn't barbarian blood but the calamity blood. Besides, I still have the life illusion pill. It can allow me to die 3 times and be reborn from the ashes. Perhaps I can seek help from the strange eyeball and give up on the 6th trial. But I'm not willing to give up just like this. He was not willing to admit defeat without a fight. Since he had the life illusion pill to save his life, he wanted to try and pass the 6th trial no matter what. The mountains had life force, the sea had life force, the plants had life force and the beasts had life force. Everything in this world had life force. The life force of the mountains and rivers would eventually be exhausted. However, the sea of fire in front of him was boundless. I want to extract the life force from the sea of fire to replenish the life force that I've lost. Ning Fan's eyes turned cold and he made a bold decision. He opened his mouth and swallowed more flames into his body, forcibly refining them. The strange eyeball was stunned for a moment. But in the next second, it let out a strange laugh. This brat has comprehended the essence of the mountain and sea incantation. Everything in this world has life force. This fire naturally has life force as well. However, the fire of Disaster Beast is unparalleled in this world. It's pure wishful thinking for you to devour the life force in the fire. It's difficult. It's really difficult. Forget it. I'll wait a little longer. When this kid really can't hold on any longer, I'll save him. After devouring the fire of Disaster Beast by force, he will beg me to save him in at most 10 breaths. Hee hee. The thought of seeing the expressionless Ning Fan begging for mercy made the strange eyeball's heart feel